Councilmember Himmelrich, if you could join us at the table. Now, you're probably going to have more up close and personal contact with your council members today than at most council meetings, because they put us up here and the coffee is in the back. So we're going to be going back and forth for coffee. As soon as Councilmember Winterer gets his coffee, we'll be ready to start. So it's a couple of minutes past 10, and time to start a very special meeting of our Santa Monica City Council for Sunday, August 23rd. We have quite deliberately chosen today to meet outside of City Hall and to invite you to join with us at an off day and an off time, just to kind of change the mood of our interaction, because today is a priority session. We do want to hear from you. We'll explain exactly what the format of the meeting is going to be before we start, so you'll understand. And of course, particularly because it's the weekend and you may not be used to having to turn off your cell phones, I want to ask that everybody turn off the ringer on your cell phone so that we can all stay focused on what we're doing here today. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask City Manager Rick Cole to lead us today.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Sarah Gorman, thank you for getting up early on Sunday, and would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Vasquez.
You're blinking, you're not on. Maybe you could borrow Councilmember Himmelrich's mic for the moment, and we'll have City TV look at that one.
Mayor Pro Tem Vasquez is not yet present. Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Himmelrich?
Here.
Councilmember Winterer? Councilmember O'Day, not yet present. Councilmember O'Connor, not yet present. And Mayor McCann.
Can't turn my mic on, I guess, until you turn yours off. Is that how this works? So that'll sort of make sure that we speak one at a time, which is probably a good thing for members of the public who are trying to find out what we're doing. So again, this is a special meeting, not just because it's on a different day and time, but because of the format. And it's been a long time since our city council has done a retreat. In fact, this city council is currently composed, has never done a retreat together. It's a chance for us to sit together on a weekend outside of the usual constraints of a council meeting, hear from the public, and decide on the priorities for the city. And I want to stress that today is about priorities. We're not setting budget. Some of the emails that I got indicated that people may have misunderstood this as a second crack at getting money in the budget. And it's really more about work plans and where we're going to focus ourselves in terms of human resources and where we can set metrics to decide what is success in certain areas. So let me go through the format of the meeting, because it is a little bit unusual. First of all, we're going to give City Manager Rick Cole a chance on behalf of our entire city staff to do an overview of just where we are, what priorities we seem to have so far, and how it might be helpful to further focus on a few to get them done. Then we're going to hear from members of the public, and I see the room is full. We're adding more seats as we speak. We will be hearing from everybody. It'll be the usual 2-minute at a time format. There'll be a mic set up. I'll ask you to line up. It'll be similar to a city council meeting at City Hall in that respect. Then the city council, and by then I hope we will all be here, will begin a discussion to review and comment on the specific goals that were listed in the staff report. The first thing I think we need to do is decide if those are the appropriate ones to be considering. And then once we've done that, we have each been given little colored dots. Now, members of the public have always said, oh, you know, you bring us to these workshops and all you do is give us little colored dots and let us put them up. Well, that's what we're going to do, okay? So we do it just like you do. And that'll help us select 3 to 5 strategic goals. These are priorities. This does not mean that other things will be defunded or deprioritized. It means an increased effort in the 3 to 5 things that we as a council, having heard from you and having heard from staff, feel are achievable and important to achieve in the next year or two. Then we'll talk about how we measure success, the SMART metrics. You see that on the agenda. We'll figure out what we do based on what we've decided, and then we're going to do a little debriefing to see how this worked as an alternate format for a city council meeting. So I would ask you all to listen carefully to what staff has to say. Again, I would stress that this is not a budget meeting. So it's not a matter of asking for money or being fearful that money will be taken from programs you care about. It's more about where we're going to focus our attention. And with that, I'll introduce item 4A, if the clerk would call that item, and let Rick Cole tell us where we are.
Good morning, members of the City Council, and good morning, members of the community, and good morning as well. Many of our staff, many of the department heads are here today as well. I apologize that although this is a terrific place to hold a meeting, the audio-visual is not so wonderful, but we'll make do. So let me begin, first of all, by thanking the City Council for giving me the opportunity over the last 8 weeks to spend a great deal of time with the organization. I've been on police ride-alongs, I've had lunch at fire stations, I've been out with our firefighters on calls in the community. I've been to our water treatment plant, I've been to, of course, to the airport, I've been to our city yards, to the meter shop, to the air conditioning shop, to the electrician shop, the paint shop, and by the way, the painters patched up a few of the marks on the wall, so we have a freshly painted room here today thanks to their efforts. I've been out to the city TV operation, and thank you to all of them here today. This is a new thing for them to be able to broadcast a city council meeting live outside of City Hall. They put a lot of work into that. So over the last 8 weeks, I've spent a lot of time talking with the 2,000 public servants who work for the city of Santa Monica. It's been an extraordinarily heartening experience. People care very deeply about the work that they do. I've also had the opportunity over these last 8 weeks to spend a great deal of time beginning to get to know the community, to begin to get to know community institutions, our college, our unified school system, the churches, the business community, the civic organizations, the neighborhood groups, the issue advocacy organizations. I've also had the opportunity to meet with many community leaders, people who serve on commissions, people who serve on nonprofit boards, people who over the last several decades have worked incredibly hard to shape this city, people who care very deeply about the issues of the day. And I couldn't have done any of this without the fact that the Assistant City Manager, Elaine Polachek, had been in my role for 6 months and had gotten the budget adopted, saw the city through the adoption of the zoning code, and has continued over the last 8 weeks to do most of the day-to-day activities that keep us moving forward. So during those 8 weeks, it's become very clear to me that we're doing a great deal. And so, see, I'm pushing a button and nothing is happening. So I'm obviously aiming it in the wrong place. There we go. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to the city clerk's crew, because we can't have a city council meeting without their able work. So what today is about, as the mayor said, and he and I are both wearing Santa Monica blue, so we got the memo. What today is about is not creating new goals for the city of Santa Monica. What today is about is not allocating money to our existing goals or reallocating money to our existing goals. What today is about is setting priorities so that we can achieve important goals of the community and the city council. So, in the last 8 weeks, I've had the opportunity to see how much we are working on. And just off the top of my head, and I know that the danger of listing a whole list of things off the top of your head is someone will say, well, he didn't mention my project, right? But the fact is that there are so many projects, literally no one can keep track of them in a coherent way. So we are, for the first time, after 20 years since the passage of medical marijuana, going to try to introduce medical marijuana dispensaries in a safe and accessible way into the community. Other communities have stumbled on this. We are going to try to do it right. We are moving forward with a task force on the future of the Civic Auditorium, one of the great institutions.
Sorry, you're being asked to hold the mic a little closer.
Okay, I apologize. I know there's people in the back, so I'll speak a little louder. Thank you. We have the task force on the Civic Auditorium, which is trying to look at the future of that important institution that over the last 50 or 60 years has played a central role in community life. We're about to have the Expo line, $1.5 billion public investment, run trains for the first time in 61 years into our community. Those trains will have significant adverse impact. Any infrastructure that you put into community, there'll be safety issues, there'll be congestion issues, but there's also extraordinary upside potential for the Expo line to address one of the most pressing issues of community concern, which is traffic in our city, by beginning to change the way we get around and offering new mobility opportunities. We have a downtown-specific plan that has not moved forward. It's been in draft form for 18 months and is an important guide for important decisions facing us in our downtown. The list goes on and on and on. I could literally spend the next 10 minutes just ticking off the number of projects across every single department, across every single part of the community. And we're doing those things, by and large, very well. And yet, we hear constant concern from the community that we should be doing more, or doing better, or doing slightly differently. And I think that part of the challenge is that we are trying to do all of these things with equal priority at the same time. There is none of these projects or aspirations that come from a very ambitious and engaged community that we cannot do. But what we cannot do is all of them at the same time with equal priority, and not without staying up until 3 a.m. at the city council meetings, which is not just hard on the city council and the staff, it's particularly hard on the community who can't stay out until 3 in the morning to be engaged in important decisions by their governing body. So, we're going to choose today 3 to 5 strategic goals, not with the idea that everything else that we're doing is going to stop happening. All the things that we're doing, we will continue to work on. All the things on the list and all the things that are not on the list will continue to get attention. But we're going to identify today those 3 to 5 strategic goals that if we focused on them, if we prioritized them, if we were very specific about outcomes, if we decided that we were going to get these things done and we were going to put all of our effort, not just as a city government, but more importantly as a community with the partnerships of community institutions and our engaged citizenry behind getting those things done, what are the things that there's broad community support for? What are those things that would be game changers? What are those things that if you had to pick, you would prioritize them to ensure that they get done? That will enable us to focus in on the things that matter most. And most importantly, it will allow us to ensure that they get done. Rather than trying to balance and push things to the back burner, and then someone is frustrated, why did that get on the back burner? When did we decide that that was on the back burner? Well, we didn't decide it was on the back burner. We decided something else needed to go on the front burner, and something had to move. So this is trying to be intentional about those choices. I think all of us know the famous poem by Robert Frost about two paths in a yellow wood diverged, and I chose one. And that has made all the difference. It's a beautiful poem about the fact that both paths seem quite appealing on that morning, about the same, as a matter of fact. And yet, when you choose one of those paths, it makes a difference. And Santa Monica has done that over the years, which is part of the reason why Santa Monica is such a special place. Our staff just brainstormed a list, which we provided you, of game changers over the last 20 years, of major significant things that started out because a citizen brought them forward, or a staff member heard about something similar going on in a different community, where we ended up taking the lead and making a major difference by putting in the time and the effort and ultimately the money to make them happen. The restoration of the pier. The pier was badly damaged. In fact, reading Santa Monica history, I understand one of my predecessors met his fate by advocating, let's get rid of the pier and let's build condos out there. He didn't last long. The restoration of the pier today means that 4 million visitors come and they see this iconic all-American symbol of what's special and unique, what the soul of this community is. The 3rd Street Promenade. Years ago, an effort to revive downtown as people began to abandon traditional merchants and their local towns to go to malls, and an effort was made to do a pedestrian mall copying successful examples in other parts of the country. Didn't work very long and didn't work very well here. But people did not give up, and the 3rd Street Promenade 20 years ago has made a huge difference in the comeback of downtown. Each of you, whether you've been here 5 years or 30 years or 50 years, can point to examples of stakes in the ground of a commitment to do something and to not rest until it's completed and finished and done well, and then gone back to and improved over time. That's what makes a difference. That's why Santa Monica is the great city it is today, because previous generations have been willing to make those commitments. So, again, I want to stress, we're not looking for new goals today. We have an ambitious list of goals. We have actually more than we can do well at the same time. So after hearing from the community, after discussing amongst yourself, we look to you, the City Council, to give the staff the clear signal, these are the 3 to 5 strategic goals that you want us as a staff to give top priority to, and to make a commitment to you and the community that together we will get them done. So these are the 12. Number 1, and there's no particular order to these, is providing world-class customer service to the community. Already, Santa Monica provides a very high level of service. I come from 2 years as deputy mayor in the city of Los Angeles, and the difference is night and day. I'll give you an example that's really striking to me. Last year, the city of Los Angeles filled 350,000 potholes. The city of Santa Monica filled 458, because we couldn't find 459 potholes to fill. There is no more inefficient way to fix your streets than to send a crew with a truck, hot asphalt, 2 people, fill in a pothole, roll over it, and come back in 6 months and the same hole's there, only bigger. That's the most expensive and inefficient way. So we get complaints at City Hall about our streets, which is, well, you just paved the street, why are you back in my neighborhood? The complaint is not that our streets are cracked and broken and in pieces. The complaints are that we are too aggressive at preventive maintenance. So should we make this a central focus of what we do? Should we make the focus be on providing an organization capable of every day in every way delivering world-class service? Unlike the City of Los Angeles, we actually have that potential. Establishing a new model for mobility. Traffic is the #1 concern in good times, right? Jobs and economy is often what people are concerned about when times are tough. But when times are good, traffic and the increased traffic on the west side of Los Angeles is a visceral issue. No one has a magic wand, but should we be working on the long-term solutions that will allow us to get where we need to go without having to spend endless amounts of time in traffic? Addressing homelessness. This is an issue that the city has worked very hard on, has made major progress toward, but it's now clearly a regional issue. We cannot solve this within our 8.3 square miles. And so can we work more closely with the County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles to help them help themselves and help us with the uptick that is occurring across our region in homelessness and the mentally ill on the street. Maintaining an inclusive and diverse community. As I've listened to folks in the community, one of the things that people deeply hold as a value is that this should be a diverse community, that this should not be an enclave simply of the very wealthy. And that what I'm hearing more of, and I know you are as well, is we've done a remarkable job compared to almost any community in California at focusing in on affordable housing for the very low income, and that we should continue to do that. But that there's increasing concern about affordability for working people and for the children of people who've lived here. And that it's really important that we continue to maintain. We're going to be talking about what are some of the tools for affordable housing and affordability in housing on Tuesday as a city council. Securing local control of the city land occupied by the Santa Monica Airport. It is one of the most visible issues. It's an issue I walked right into on sort of day one as city manager because of the July 1 expiration of the 1984 agreement between the FAA and the City Council. And so this is an issue that the voters last November spoke loudly and clearly about, and it's clearly a priority of the City Council, but it is a very big lift to take on the FAA and the national forces that view this not just as a local matter, but as a matter of national precedent. Achieving water and climate change sustainability goals. We're in a drought. That drought will end this fall, next fall, the fall after. But the new normal of not having enough water to be able to waste it is something that's not going to go away, and particularly with climate change. So water and energy sustainability have been part of what the city has been committed to. Achieving the very ambitious goals in your sustainability plan for 2025 and 2035 will require a tremendous amount of work right now. 7 is we are working on a Bergamot-specific plan. We have a task force on the Civic Auditorium. Many people feel that focusing in on one or both of those artistic venues and cultural centers could be a game changer in future years. Number 8, providing affordable community-wide gigabit speed fiber. Most people do not realize, because we are serving primarily the business corridors with our fiber, but the city now has 145 business customers who buy their high-speed internet, not from Verizon, not from AT&T, not from Time Warner, but from the city of Santa Monica, and they pay $2 million a year for that. Should we be extending that out to all of the businesses and residents in Santa Monica? And would that be a game changer to give high-speed internet and Wi-Fi accessibility to everyone in the community? Strengthening downtown as a community hometown with local serving and cultural amenities. The city has pursued a downtown strategy for the last 35 years. It's been extraordinarily successful, maybe at some level too successful, in the sense that we hear more and more that community members feel that they really want to have a greater sense that it's their downtown and that it serves them and that they feel comfortable. So can we continue to strengthen the attractiveness of downtown, particularly for our local residents? Expanding the resilience of community infrastructure. Back in, I want to say 1994, we had the earthquake that shook this city, and it's, you know, memory tends to fade, but earthquakes remain a considerable concern to Southern California. So do tsunamis after what happened in Japan. So do other natural and man-made disasters, whether it's the slow-moving disaster of climate change or it's the rapid disaster of an 8.0 earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. Are we prepared? This may not seem the most urgent issue today, but if we experience a disaster next month, next year, in 2 or 3 years, we will rue the day that we did not put sufficient emphasis on being ready for that kind of disaster. Number 11 is taking community engagement to the next level. This has been a hallmark. It's part of the DNA. It's part of why I came here as city manager. This is a community that is not just about government. And people don't just say, oh, well, the government will take care of it. They want to be engaged. They want to be informed. Today's turnout on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. is indicative of how deeply people care in this community. And yet, increasingly we have sharp voices. We have a discourse that's become more and more personal. There's been a national erosion of trust in institutions. Can Santa Monica again be a beacon of figuring out new and better ways of involving the community so that people, as our well-being index research indicates, feel that they are truly part of a successful democracy? And finally, something that is another part of the DNA of Santa Monica, which distinguishes it from most of the other 488 cities in California, is in most of the 488 cities, if people come to the city council and talk about education, they'll say, well, you're in the wrong place. You need to go over to the school board. We have nothing to do with education. We do cops, we do concrete, we do parks, we do libraries, we don't do schools, we don't do education. Here in Santa Monica, the idea is we work together, we're shoulder to shoulder, we have a whole career, cradle to career initiative in which we're partners not just with the school district and the community college, but with all the institutions, including our own library, that are involved in lifelong learning. So these are the 12. They're all good. They're all worthy. They're all indicative of things that you care deeply about. And there are other things that perhaps should be on this list. Maybe it should be 13 or 14 or 15. But if there are 13 or 14 and 15 and we put equal emphasis on all of those, we won't really be able to move the ball forward on any of them. So the hard challenge today is not to say, what are we taking off the list? Because we're not taking anything off the list of the things we care about or we work on. The hard work today is which are the ones that we're going to elevate. Which are the ones that are going to get the most attention from the city council? Which are the ones that are going to get most of the attention from the city manager and the city attorney? Which are the ones we're going to make a commitment to actually specifically advance them from here to here in a defined period of time? If we do that, we will make progress, we will get them done, we will do the work of this generation, and we will achieve the goals of your city council elected by this community. The final piece is measuring those goals. Today, I hope we will achieve a lot of clarity about what those 3 to 5 goals should be. But it's not enough to say we're going to work on something. It's important that we be specific about what we're going to do. What are we going to accomplish? And the best example of that, I think, in the memory of people of the age of most of us in this room, is when John Kennedy spoke in 1962 at Rice University, and he said, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. It was very clear. Not that we were going to explore space or we're going to pursue a space program. We were going to put a man, and it was a man in those days, a man on the moon and bring him back safely. And we did that by the end of the decade because that was a very clear goal. So it has to be specific and it has to be measurable, right? You can't get 3/4 of the way to the moon and then come back. You got to get all the way to the moon and you got to land there and you got to plant your flag and then you got to get back all the way to Houston. Failure is not an option. It has to be achievable, right? Now, a lot of people, it was a stretch to think about getting to the moon. In 1962, there wasn't the technology, the certainty, but what John Kennedy knew was we could figure it out, that American brain power and American ingenuity could figure it out. So it has to be, these goals have to be achievable. They have to be relevant, and that's what today is about. What is it? It's if we're measuring something that's easy to measure, but it doesn't really tell us what we need to know, then it's not relevant. And of course, it has to be timely. We have to actually set deadlines. Deadlines are helpful. We don't have a deadline on the downtown specific plan. So it's been in draft form for 18 months. We haven't said it's going to be adopted by this date. So it sort of is on the back burner. The zoning code came forward because that was had a higher priority. It got pushed aside. So when you put a date on something, then you know that you're accountable and you work hard to achieve the goal by the date. That's the next piece of let's establish the 3 to 5 strategic goals, let's be specific about what they mean, and then let's deliver them on time and on budget. So that's my presentation as background, and Mr. Mayor, we're looking forward to hearing from the voices of the community and then from yours.
Well, thank you, Rick. That was quite a presentation. And I'm waving the applause really because that was a tour de force that I think really challenges us. And by us, I mean not just the council, but the members of the public, because we're all on the same level today. Quite deliberately, we're not up on the dais. We're outside of City Hall. We're trying to, as a community, focus on what we want to achieve. And what I heard coming out of that is, first of all, we're looking at the game changers, the things that will make a real substantive difference, the turning points that 10 years from now we look back and say, boy, was it important the city of Santa Monica took that on. We're also not looking at undoing anything we're doing now. We're just looking at enhanced focus and trying to set measurable success so we know when we're doing the right thing that we've achieved it. I also couldn't help but note, Rick, that many of these things interact quite intimately. For instance, our interest in education and cradle to career would be served in great part by stable and affordable housing so that young students had a bedroom to study in, that they had the kind of family security that comes out of a job for a father or a mother that supports the family. Downtown, very important goal, but it will be helped a great deal if we decide what to do about mobility, because one of the challenges with our downtown, certainly right now, is traffic and access. So in a way, we can't tease these apart into 12 separate things, or maybe more than 12, but we have to pick which are the most important threads to pursue. So the first thing I'd like to do is to turn to the council and ask, are these the right things to be looking at? Does the council feel that these are the right things from which to be choosing? Mayor, Tony, we're not going to call each other by title, Tony.
I just had a quick question, and Rick, you mentioned it in your, I guess it was at the end of the remarks, like, for example, you used an example, the downtown specific plan. As I look at the 12 that are up here, what would that fall under?
Turn yours off.
Oh,
Thanks, Tony. Specifically, it would fall under the hometown downtown as part of achieving that larger downtown strategy. But we're not trying to, in these strategic goals, tease out individual pieces that get us where we need to go. We're really looking for outcomes, but that clearly would fall in that outcome.
Ted?
So, you know, I hate to even suggest that we add to what is already a very comprehensive list, but it did occur to me at looking this, we do hear a lot these days about concerns that we are a city that needs more parks, more playing fields, more recreational opportunities, more open space. And I didn't really see that anywhere on this list, and wondering if you could address that.
I've heard the same, you've heard the same. It's objectively a fact that, that Santa Monica, developing as it did over the last 60 or 70 years, did not set aside as much land. Obviously, the airport potentially is a huge game changer around the issue of open space and parks, and certainly that's implicit. We had a number of other priorities that we talked about. That clearly was one of them. In the end, given the amount of money it takes to significantly buy land, we thought that arguably the airport is our biggest opportunity to solve that. Again, we have a very ambitious effort to continue to improve our parks and continue to look for opportunities to expand them. But if you'd like to add that to the list, I'll leave that to your colleagues. Again, there are many worthwhile projects that we tried to meld into the 12 that were conceivably game changers.
I just follow up? Okay, sure.
Sue had asked to speak.
Thank you. So I actually have a question, and that is this, that when I look at this list, I see items that I perceive as urgent items and things that are less time sensitive. And I wonder, I understand you're leaving it to us to determine what's urgent, but I wonder if staff had a sense of what was urgent as you were drawing up these items.
Sue, let me say that oftentimes that's in the eye of the beholder. So let me give you a very blunt example, the airport. For those who assess the lay of the land and say the expiration of the 1984 agreement and our position of the expiration last year of our funding agreement with FAA means that we have basically an empty runway to take off on. That is to say, we are now in charge. This is an urgent thing that should have been done yesterday. To those who see that we're up against a tremendous legal battalion from the FAA that are not here to frustrate us. They're here to make sure that we are not the case study of one community triumphing over the aviation industry in the city, and that we're in for a battle that is going to be make sort of World War I trench warfare look like a day at the beach. So the urgency, right, you know, is in the eye of the beholder. There are those who see this as we should strike fast, strike hard, strike now. And there are those who say, well, this is going to be inch by inch by inch. We're going to win, but it's going to be a battle that's going to take a number of years. So I think the estimate of urgency is less one that we think any of these are, as staff, are more urgent than others. I think we think that depending upon your assessment, you could come to a range of decisions on that spectrum.
So folks, we're beginning to learn. I'm going to turn to you in a moment, Pam. What we're beginning to learn, I want to get this technical thing out of the way, is that to keep only one of us speaking at a time, the tech is set up so that only one mic can be on at a time. So when you're done speaking, please remember to turn your mic off so the next person can speak. And Pam is asked to ask some questions.
Mine was more a follow-up on the park and recreation side of it. Things like, different departments will continue to do their work and their ongoing work, both their short-term planning and their long-term planning. So something like the open space element that was done in the early 90s, arguably now is about 20 years old. So things like that can guide and assess how we've done in terms of that plan and what the future should be. This would not preclude things like that continuing on.
Not in the least, and again, that we cannot stress that strongly enough. And the other, what I hope will be an advantage to this process, is we can actually check things off the list, right? Because when you're working, and we all know this in our work life or our home life, if you're trying to do 15 things at the same time, it's hard to finish one so that that's done and you can now devote your full attention to the next one. In many ways, some of these issues that aren't on the list could get on the list if we could get some of the ones that are on the list off the list because they're finished.
Liam?
Thank you. And this is really more of a comment, but I'd like to hear it addressed perhaps in the public comment as well as in our discussion, which is that if we make something a priority, what will be different? For me, I'm sure there are people in the room who will go through every list and say, that's my number one priority. But the question is, if we in fact make it a priority, attach those resources to it, Rick, as you've described, what different outcome can we expect? And that to me is really key, because making priorities just for the sake of making priorities doesn't do us any good. We're looking to have achievable goals. And so if we get to the same goal with something not being a priority, but we can make a difference and achieve something more when it is a priority. So I'm just making that comment because I'd like staff, as we hear from the public, to think about which of these priorities are we going to get differential outcomes in if we make them a priority.
Maybe we could treat that as a question, Rick, and maybe you could give us some idea of what you think the difference will be if we choose something to be a focused priority.
Well, I think your comment sort of stands without needing an answer, but let me give an example of where there might actually be a significant difference. And again, you give examples and it's going to cause some people some heartburn, but we're working hard on the civic auditorium. We've devoted significant staff time. We've hired consultants. We have 8 or 10 very dedicated civic leaders who've worked on a task force. They've held public discussions. They've had a lot of input. It's clear that to put the auditorium back into use is something on the order of $50 million of upfront costs, and then depending upon the use, might be $1 million or $2 million a year of ongoing subsidies to make sure that that's something that, if it's an entertainment venue, it might make money. If it's a strictly cultural venue, it probably will cost money. So we'll work on that, and we'll see if we can't find a solution to that. But if we say this is one of your top 3 to 5 priorities, we will bend heaven and earth to make sure that we achieve what the community vision is for that very important kind of central civic symbol of our community, and have a very clear vision of what we want to achieve. Right now, there's a kind of an opportunism. Oh, how about hockey? Well, how about this? How about that? And one of those might strike gold. Someone might say, I would like this to be the Joe Smith Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, and here's my check for $50 million. And we might say, boy, that problem solved. But if we make it a priority, we will shake every tree. We will pursue every avenue to make sure that if you set a goal, it will get done. And that's the difference. It's a subtle difference, but it's an important difference, Because right now, we are committed to working on a whole bunch of things, but it is impossible for us to promise to deliver on all those things because there's not enough time, there's not enough political will, there's not enough money to do all those things and do them well and do them at the same time.
So folks, do we have any other questions for Rick before we bring the public into the discussion? Pam, do you have a? No, I'll be back. Okay. Well, the city clerk has set up a microphone over in the corner there that the public can use, and we're going to use a format very similar to what we do at most council meetings, which is ask people as their names are called to stand and be ready to speak so we can get through the list. We have at least 25, maybe more people who want to speak, so we want to get through this and be able to hear from all of you. Looking around the room, this is a little bit different from when we have meetings in City Hall because I believe today the only speaker in shorts won't be Jerry Rubin, but he is first. So Jerry, you're the first speaker, followed by Debbie Mitchell and Amy Bishop Dunbar.
Well, thank you very, very much, Mayor McKeown, Mayor Pro Tem Vasquez, council members, city staff, and the esteemed Santa Monica community. I want to thank city staff and the council for holding this public forum on a Sunday here. It's a lot of integrity in doing that. First of all, I do want to say that flexibility is very important in all aspects of everything we do. Something might come up that we don't anticipate. I would hate to hear us say, well, we're not going to work on that because it's really not one of our top 3 or 5 priorities. Keep that flexibility in mind. Been doing good with that. City staff makes good judgment decisions. That's why we have their expertise. And the councils. First and foremost, I do want to say that working on the public and keeping the public to decide what's done with the airport. I think a lot of people have shown they want to see the airport closed. They want to see it turned into a park. And even though it's hard to achieve, like going to the moon, it is achievable. And whether it's short term or all fast or long term, let's all unite behind that. Second is let's increase our cultural and artistic vitality. Saving the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium is a priority. That's why we did appoint a task force, and let's get it done. Revitalize the Forum in Inglewood. We certainly can do it here. It's different, but in a way it's the same. And let's do more to promote art. Art on Lincoln Boulevard, art everywhere. Other cities are doing it. Art is a sustainable city goal. Let's do it. Let's preserve the art we have. We've saved Chain Reaction. Let's have the city work with the school district to save the Muir Woods mural. Let's do more with art. And third, transportation. Let's do more to convince people to get out of their cars a little bit and get on the blue bus or the light rail. That's going to help reduce traffic. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, folks, we don't have the usual loud, intrusive buzzer to let you know your time is up. So please do pay attention to the beep. Next is Debbie.
Short here. Hi, I'm Debbie Mitchell, or Debbie Flores Mitchell. I have been in Santa Monica area 20 years. I am honorably to say that my best friend in the world is Abe Vasquez. He has taught me so much about being a Mexican-American and stand up. I feel that the council has a department that do help OPCC, Claire, Boys and Girls, Step Up on Second, and St. Joseph's, Chrysalin, and Wise, and Center Civic Mediation. I think all these programs are fabulous, but I also feel at this time some of the programs need to be rechecked, because I feel that my situation at this time, I have, in a bad situation, had to go to one of these programs, and I feel that some of these programs choose whom they wish to help and whom they feel that could help. I understand that there is a large amount of people here, but how many African Americans stand up? How many Mexican Americans? They're a part of our community as well, and I feel that they should be heard as well. I think some of the council meetings should be speaking in Spanish. ¿Cómo estás? Yo es Deborah. Why not? They do it on the bus. Why can't we open the doors to our community in the culture? When we go to school, we're not chose to go to education because of our creed. We go to education because we want to further ourselves. I speak 4 languages. I'm a very educated Mexican American, and my best friend, Abe Vasquez, showed me so many things, and he kept saying, follow your dream, and don't give up. And that's why I'm wearing this hat, to indicate that I am a strong Mexican-American woman, and I feel I deserve the chance not to be chosen for the color of my skin, but to be honored for myself. Thank you.
Gracias. Amy, you're next, followed by Sean Laundress and Irene Zivy.
Hi. Honorable Mayor McEwen and distinguished City Council members and staff, my name is Amy Bishop Dunbar. I am here as a representative for the PICO Improvement Organization. I am a community business resident liaison, and I hold a position as an elected board member as well. I wanted to say there are 3 words sometimes you start in a meeting and you say, what are we going to do? And I said one is viability, one is visibility, and the other is access. I hope that viability, visibility, and access become part of the words you look at when you're going through this list of things. I meet with every single business on the boulevard, and we have come to several different awarenesses. PICO was essentially a resource street for the McDonnell Douglas and the residents of the community that lived nearby. It's a very narrow street, but it's one that's very much in character with a beach community. What I'm trying to identify in terms of what I hear from the businesses is that they need your support. We need, in terms of viability, some access. We need the routes, the 3 locations along the boulevard that are access points to the freeway, or the 3 hubs that will be access points to the metro station, to be good links to Pico Boulevard and to the business buildings, the business parks beyond. We have some on Olympic, but then we also have some on Ocean Park Boulevard. We also recognize that there is the need to improve educational opportunities. Technology has essentially been screaming ahead, and we have many businesses that need to have the support and help in connecting with new infrastructure and new opportunities to learn how to promote their businesses. We also recognize that there is a needed response to coordinate the business understanding of what happens with homelessness. So in that sense, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sean, you're next.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, City Manager Cole. My name is Sean Landress. Grew up in Santa Monica and live in the Sunset Park, Pico area. I am your newly sworn Social Services Commissioner, but I'm here in an individual capacity. As a Santa Monica resident, I also have had the privilege of chairing the Santa Monica Library's Innovation Technology Task Force, and I serve in the county on the Los Angeles County Quality and Productivity Commission. My 7.5-year-old daughter asked me to add ice cream and rain to the strategic list. By which I think she means bikes and libraries. But I did a little homework, and you have a sheet that I gave you. I just want to offer really 3 specific observations. One is that it strikes me that some of these priorities as listed really could fall out within different types of frameworks. The Santa Monica Wellbeing Index, one could look at their 6 categories and divvy these up according to them. The Sustainable City Report Card, the Brookings Institution's notion that cities ought to be productive, inclusive, and resilient. And so I would encourage you to, as you're building your strategy, think about the framework within which those strategies might play out, and perhaps choose one from each category that matters most to you. Along with that, I think that with the Wellbeing Index, which is a Santa Monica product, and the Sustainable City Report Card, those are 2 very important sets of metrics by which you could measure any one of these strategies, and I would encourage you to use them as you build out the SMART metrics, because they are indicators of whether or not we are moving the needle. And then finally, as a new social services commissioner, I would encourage you to use the commission structures to advance the strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. Irene, you're next, followed by Craig Hamilton and Lenore Morrell.
I'll hold it. Mayor McEwen, council members, and City Manager Cole. My name is Irene Zeevy, and I've lived in Santa Monica in Sunset Park since 1980. My husband Sam and I feel so fortunate to be able to live in a prosperous and humane city. As you set priorities and goals for Santa Monica, please keep this a safe and financially sound city that protects the well-being of all of our citizens from birth to old age. As a member of the Santa Monica Child Care and Early Education Task Force and its liaison to Cradle to Career, I ask you to provide for the youngest of our citizens, especially those who need financial assistance and have other kinds of needs. Some outstanding examples of what the city is doing are the Early Childhood Education Center, which is still to be built, kindergarten readiness, the YRT expanded for all ages, and services for young children living in community corporation housing. These are all programs the city has started through Cradle to Career. Please prioritize these humane efforts. President Obama constantly calls for the investment in quality early childhood education because research shows how important the early years are to success in life. This kind of encompasses strategic goal number 12. I also want to add my complete support for affordable housing. I served on the Community Corp board for many years, and I hope you will find a way to finance more affordable housing in Santa Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. Our new Architectural Review Board member, Craig, is next.
Hi, I'm Craig Hamilton, and I'd like to thank the council for the appointment to the ARB. It's been an interesting couple of months, and it's teaching me some new things about our community. As you're going through all of the priorities, there's one of the things that I'd like to speak in favor of is the consideration of housing, and not just affordable housing, but workforce housing. There is a significant imbalance of jobs and housing in the community. And I think one of the places, and just from my last ARB meeting, it's a couple of interesting lessons that show kind of the unintended consequences that can happen if we don't think about it. Two projects that were before us, and we just look at the architectural components of them. One was a small 6-unit condo project with one affordable unit in Ocean Park. Very nice architecturally, but it's replacing 8 units of the little one-story dingbat stuff that is all over the community. So it's a net loss of housing. The other project is the Papermate site, the Penn project, which is a very, as creative office space, has the potential to be a great place to work, but it's very private, and it is going to bring a lot of people here with virtually no community benefit other than more jobs. Certainly not housing, and not probably what could happen if we thought about it. So there, just as you think about all of the subjects, to remember that we all need a place to live here. I'm fortunate to live here and pay a mortgage with a job, but I'd like to retire here, and I'd like to have my kids be able to move back here from college. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenore, you're next, followed by Tom Boyson and Jillian Alexander.
Thank you. There were so many attractive ideas presented by our new city manager, but I would like to emphasize the following ones. First, in terms of tackling the mobility and traffic issues in town here, I think I would recommend high priority be given to improving transportation within the city for both residents and visitors. You can get from the east to the west side. You can move around the city without having to resort to your car. And particularly, I recommend that we seriously study the development of circulator system, not just a little golf cart-like things that people have been, that we do have some of, largely servicing hotels, but rather a serious transportation system based on getting people around town. I think that would help solve some of the problem of using Expo as well, if properly designed. And I think that the progress there could be readily measured in terms of specific objectives about planning, routes, funding, et cetera, being met on a timetable. Secondly, I think I personally give high importance to advancing both the Bergamot Plan and the Civic Center plans as ways of restoring and enhancing Santa Monica's reputation as a cultural and artistic center rather than a mecca for shopping, or only a mecca for shopping. And I really think serious attention needs to be given to expediting the development of those plans and focusing on the service of these remarkable sites for artistic and cultural development, and not kind of losing a lot of that by trying to fund the sites through all sorts of office and other kinds of development that would vitiate the quality of their purpose, of their ability to serve their purpose.
Thank you, Lenore.
Oh, I didn't get to my
Sorry,
most important one.
we have to give everybody the same amount of time.
Okay,
so
I need to
thank
say
you. No, you
parks
don't
in
need to,
public
Lenore,
land.
please, you really can't. It's just not fair for one person to take more time. The next name I called was Tom Boyson. You don't
Tom Boyson's my husband, and he had to leave, so can I speak in his place?
Well, you can speak, but you'll have to, our rules are you'll have to turn in a separate request to speak, and we will hear you, but you can't substitute for somebody else, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have turned in a request, I haven't been called yet.
Okay, you'll be coming up. Jillian Alexander, you will be followed by John Mims and Zena Josephs. Hi.
All right, for those of us who were too short.
The other end of it could be a problem too, trust me.
Mayor McEwen, City Council, City staff. I am a member of the Commission on the Status of Women. I have resided in the community for 18 years. I started my business here. I'm a management consultant. And in doing all that, I have also taken on teaching entrepreneurship and international business at Santa Monica College. I have looked a lot at our numbers, our city budget. I was involved in the report on the Commission on Women that we'll be hearing more on Tuesday night. But in all of that, one of the things that I really appreciate is Rick Cole's letter to City Council, some of the constructive criticisms there, and that we need to be strategic about being strategic, I think is right on task. One of the things that I see missing out of this 12-point list is I don't see economic development here, true economic development. Economic development will be the driver for affordable housing and can be the driver for the well-being. Some of the things that we haven't talked about is over 11% of our working age 18 to 74 population is, according to the American Community Survey, living in poverty. That's a huge number. There's 11.8% of our population living in poverty. We have not produced the middle-income affordable housing that was actually planned for, that is guaranteed that 30% of the housing that would be produced would be for this middle-income workforce. It has not been done. We've seen a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people in my age group start businesses here and have to leave the community and take their businesses with them.
John, you're next.
Hi, my name is John Mims. I'm a project manager at Community Corporation of Santa Monica, and it'll come as no surprise that we think that affordable housing should be a strategic goal for the city. Affordable housing does more than just house people, though. It helps Santa Monica live its ideals and implement its goals. Continued support for affordable housing helps Santa Monica stay Santa Monica. Affordable housing supports many of the 12 strategic goals that have been identified for Council's consideration. For example, Affordable housing helps the city maintain an inclusive and diverse community by providing quality housing options for people with moderate and low incomes. Affordable housing also helps reduce homelessness in the city by providing options that get people off the street and into housing to start their transition away from homelessness. But even more than that, affordable housing helps support the multimodal travel and utilize the transit infrastructure that's already in place and is being created. Studies have shown that affordable housing residents use transit at a higher rate than market rate residents, and every bike rack that we install at our properties is filled with tenant bicycles. We're working with the city to subsidize the new bike share program for our residents, and we welcome hosting bike share infrastructure at our properties. Affordable housing also helps the city meet its lofty sustainability leadership goals. CCSM developed the first LEED multifamily building here in downtown Santa Monica next to the Expo Line terminus. We regularly partner with the Office of Sustainability and Environment on programs like water conservation projects and looking to retrofit existing multifamily buildings with gray water systems. Affordable housing also provides opportunities to expand the city's high-speed internet infrastructure, and we've reached those who perhaps would otherwise be unable to access that level of broadband. We've connected one building to our network, and we're looking to connect 2 more buildings to that goal. But lastly, affordable housing also helps strengthen downtown. We're a member of Downtown Santa Monica, and we house 100 low-income individuals in our properties downtown. We share your goal and want to continue to support what you're doing and your strategic initiatives. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Zena, you'll be followed by Diane Miller and Hank Koenig.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. About 15 years ago, I received a phone call. It was the City Satisfaction Survey. And as I recall, one of the questions was, is the city going in the right direction, yes or no? And I thought that was a pretty simplistic question, which I had difficulty answering. And then another one was something like, what is the one thing you're concerned about? And I said, well, there are 2 things. It's traffic and the airport. So this year, the Friends of Sunset Park membership forums, as usual, included space for my greatest concerns are. And we received 848 comments so far. 260 were on traffic and circulation, 243 on the airport, 147 on land use, 99 on public safety, and then smaller number of comments on the college, Santa Monica government and city services, and on sustainability and the environment. Regarding the airport, there have been more than 80 accidents since 1982. In the 1960s, more than 200 Sunset Park families sued the city over jet traffic, and here we are, 50 years later. The Embraer jet that crashed in England recently, killing members of the bin Laden family, is a model that flies in and out of Santa Monica Airport all the time. It landed early and killed everyone on board. And we can assume, since it was the wealthy bin Laden family, that the plane had good maintenance and a competent pilot. Speaking only for myself, I think that climate change will have a tremendous effect on Santa Monica in terms of water and sea level change. I read recently that water use per capita in California was reduced 50% over the last few decades at the same time that the state population doubled. So it's a wash. So this is something I'm very concerned about. Thank you.
Thanks, Zena. Diane, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. And first of all, I want to thank Council and City Manager and staff for taking on this Herculean task. We're most grateful for your dedication to take this on. I read all the documents yesterday and just, wow, it's such a big job. I'm here to urge the council, of course, to preserve. Okay. I thought it was something I said. But anyhow, I would just like to urge council to include in the top 3 priorities affordable housing. I think that to preserve, protect, and to add to our affordable housing is really our top priority. With the increase, the nexus and the increase of homelessness, it's all really in the same ballpark. I would also like to urge the council to look at the opportunity of our city taking a leadership role, creating a funding model that other cities could follow, and maybe collectively we could urge Sacramento to do some matching funds for us. The other thing I'd like to urge to do is I'd like us to look at legislatively thanking Karen and Maxine, and urge, excuse me, our legislature to put a moratorium on the Ellis Act and give us time to put a stay of execution on that horrific act that's raping and pillaging our affordable housing here. Also a hallmark, excuse me, another cold, what can I tell you? A hallmark of our beautiful culture and diversity in the city has been the fabric of preserving our beautiful, iconic architecture. I'd love to salute the Santa Monica Conservancy that's helped me with my education on this. I'd like to urge the City Council to look at more historic districts like the one we're doing in the Historic San Vicente Coalition on that corridor so that we can start preserving the clusters of beautiful courtyard housing and make this a priority in this designation. Also, I'd like to thank the council for my appointment to the Commission on the Status of Women. I think we're going to find, if we do a study, that the aging women and the single mothers are really more at risk for becoming homeless and losing affordable housing. I think that's going to become important data that hopefully we can present to council. And again, I thank you for this and allowing us to be a part of it and urge you to include affordable housing in your top 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a curtain raiser, we do have that congressional letter about the Ellis Act on the City Council agenda for Tuesday night, so we hope to see you there.
Oh,
Hank,
you
you're
can
next.
bet.
Hank, you're next, followed by Carl Hansen and Leslie Lambert.
And since it's Sunday, I can say hi, guys. We who live in Santa Monica, and I've lived here for 35 years, have so much to be thankful for. The city's blessed with a fabulous location near the Pacific Ocean, great weather, access to good jobs, great schools, excellent health care and social services, wonderful recreation and entertainment and cultural options. And we've got a great transit system in Big Blue Bus, soon to be complemented by the Expo line and enhanced bike facilities routes. So it's really easy to see why folks would want to keep this all to themselves. But to preserve the health of our little planet, we need to shift to a more sustainable, sharing lifestyle. And to do that, we need more housing. The city's record on this is not consistent with the many statements that council members have made over the past years in support of housing. From 1970 to 2010, the last census, the population of Santa Monica increased 1.6%. That's 1.6% over 40 years. And from fiscal year 2013 to today, the city's approved 55 new housing units. Now you have a list of items to consider prioritising today. Housing touches on many of these. New housing in Santa Monica near the jobs, near transit, near education, recreation, etc. will reduce auto dependency and vehicle miles travelled and be a considerable contribution to the city's sustainability goals. New market rate housing will require the construction and or financing of new affordable housing units contributing towards the city's diversity goals. Since the dissolution of redevelopment agencies, this will be a primary method of funding constructing affordable housing. Affordable housing should include housing for the homeless, another item on your list. And having a stable place to live is essential to good education, job retention, family health. Again, all items on your list. And it will contribute to the city's coffers for open space, historic preservation, etc.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carl.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. I'm used to saying that jokingly when we're after midnight, so it's nice to actually have some sunlight. I wanted to second some of the points Hank made about housing, particularly related to goal number 4, maintaining an inclusive and diverse community by increasing housing accessibility. I think it's essential that we look at not just affordable housing and housing for the homeless, which are incredibly important, but also housing for market rate housing and those that don't make enough, or sorry, make too much to qualify for affordable housing, but on the market, they're incredibly burdened by the market rate rents. And I think what gets confused sometimes is that new market rate housing may be outside of my affordability level. Certainly new things that are coming on the market are very much at the high end, but adding to the market depresses increases the supply across the market and makes it more affordable and less competitive in the more affordable parts of town. So it makes it easier for me to find a place to live in Wilmot, et cetera. And that goal, I think, spreads across many of the other goals: traffic reduction, homelessness, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, particularly if it's transit-oriented development. And then lastly, I think the downtown hometown goal, I think more homes in a downtown makes a more hometown downtown. And growing up in San Diego area, the San Diego downtown was almost exclusively commercial, and over the past 20 years they've really focused on bringing new residential units into the downtown, and it brings the kind of commercial uses that make a more interesting downtown. Lastly, just quickly, I wanted to talk about Goal 11, the taking community civic engagement to the next level. I think that can spread across all of the other goals as well. The city, the chamber, and members of the chamber and the tech community are really interested in partnering on strategies involving community engagement and the ways that technology can help address that. So happy to see that move forward.
Thank you. In the interest of better audio on City TV and the audio archive of the meeting, I'm going to ask that people not hold the mic quite so close. I think we're getting some overloading on that mic. Leslie, you're next, followed by Carol Lemline and Brian Darrow.
My name is Leslie Lambert, and I'm a longtime resident of Santa Monica, and I live in Sunset Park, and I'm dressed for church today, which is where I'm not. I'm here. I'm at the Church of Civic Engagement. What? It is God's work. It is God's. She's right on. My highest priority, no surprise, is housing. So that would be goal number 4, which is the inclusive, diverse community, which we once have and still have some remnants of, and I'd like to see it reinvigorated. I think housing production, long-term, stable funding source for affordable housing production in Santa Monica should be a very high priority, and I know you're addressing that Tuesday night. And I would discourage, I'm not altogether sure that putting it to the voters is the best strategy, given recent history. So it would be good, I think, if there were a way that you could actually find a way of city funding going to affordable housing as a city council, that might be advisable. I also encourage you to expedite the development agreements that are in the pipeline. There are 1,400 housing units in those development agreements, a to-be-determined percentage of affordable units among those 1,400. And I understand there is controversy about whether mixed income housing really is a great idea, when in reality almost 25% of the Prop R compliance of low-income units came from mixed income housing projects. So it is an important source of affordable housing. I would also encourage you to consider the workforce housing component. If there were a way to include that, middle income folks like teachers and nurses and what have you, in the development agreements without hurting the set-aside of extremely low income, I would encourage you. Today. And then I also encourage you to expedite the downtown specific plan. I like the idea of communities serving downtown. My community serving downtown is Boulevard. I mean, I do all of my shopping in my neighborhood commercial district, and I don't think I'm unusual. But I do use downtown. And there are also there are lots and lots of new people living downtown. I could sing a few verses.
Thank you. You said you were dressed for church. I'm wearing my Sunday. Carol.
Good morning. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the board of the Santa Monica Conservancy to express our concern that historic preservation and its contribution to our community's well-being, prosperity and quality of life, and sustainability was missing from the staff report intended to prepare you for this discussion. I'm not going to tell you that historic preservation belongs in your selected list of 3 to 5 priorities, but I want you to consider the role that preservation plays in the priorities you select, and as appropriate, address that in the metrics. The list of strategic projects and priorities that have shaped Santa Monica lists many initiatives of the last 20 years, but fails to include the 2002 historic preservation element, which set the city's preservation goals and objectives. I quote, "The preservation of historic buildings enhances the quality of life in Santa Monica. It improves the quality of the built environment, encourages respect and appreciation for the community's historic history and culture, and maintains the character of the city and contributes to the city's economic stability." That's from the element itself. The preparation of the element is an optional element of the general plan, and our city is commended for doing so. Once adopted, it became equal to the policies in any of the mandated areas of like the loose. The contribution of preservation to our community's well-being, prosperity, quality of life, and sustainability should be considered in any discussion intended to establish these strategic goals and their metrics. We hope you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, you'll be followed by Alan Levinson and Jim Redden.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Brian Darrow. I live in downtown Santa Monica. I have two children. My top 3, just in the order it was presented, I really enjoyed the presentation, is mobility, maintain inclusive and diverse community, and building a learning community. So Mobility. I'm just going to say bikes, 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 okay? So, you know, there are projects going on now I'd especially like to see more students biking to school. I know there's project going on now at the high school. I prioritize projects like that. One other pet peeve I have is any new housing, I'd like to see secure, covered, ground floor bike parking included, just to make it easier for people to make that choice. Okay, number two, maintain inclusive and diverse community. I'll just say an anecdotal story. My son's teacher moved over the summer. She was a perfect resident. She was an elementary school teacher. She rode her bike to school. She got priced out of Santa Monica. She lives in Colorado now. So, and then the last thing, so as far as that, you know, I know the loose is being debated and so forth. I would love to see more housing built along transit corridors. I think it's absolutely necessary. And I would mention, I think there should be 3-bedroom units for families included in that as well. The last one, building a learning community. I have a 12-year-old son with autism. He just started middle school at Lincoln. And as he gets older, you know, we're seeing, you know, the services are less and less. And, you know, it gets more and more expensive as he gets older and there's less opportunity. If we want to really be an inclusive community, I think we should think about those people too. It actually makes us all better off once we include people like that in our community. Thank you very much.
Alan, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Whoops, Alan Levinson. I've lived here for over 20 years. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. I've lived here over 20 years, and while I've lived here, I've seen the promenade grow from a junky little street to a very busy center. I've also seen the airport grow from 1 or 2 jets a day to a very busy jet port, even though some people don't like the use of that word. There's been a lot of changes on the promenade. The only change at the airport is it's been more jets, more often, more noise, more people upset. When I first started coming to council meetings, I saw all the council members sitting up on the dais and looked up to them, and I still do. But they're like us. We're all at the same level here. I think we need to look at the FAA much in the same way. They're not gods up there. They're just people doing their job. They're trying to keep the airport open. We shouldn't be afraid. We have to want to do something about this airport. We need to listen to the people about the airport and about affordable housing, just like we're hearing all day. And we need to act. It is a big lift, as Rick said. We need to get help from the feds, from the city of LA, at the state level. Representatives Lou and Bass are there to help us. They've already reached out to us. Mike Bonin wants the same thing we do. Mike Fuhrer in the city of LA wants it too. This is a big opportunity. We can solve a lot of problems. We can solve open space problems. We can solve park problems. Cultural center, don't rule out the airport. We have a museum there. We have an art center there. We have the Ruskin Theater there. It's a great place for arts and culture, outdoor theater, outdoor concerts, park space, exercise, all that stuff. And this is 2 minutes, but this is a long 2 minutes. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Airport housing.
Well, thank you. You got lucky on that one, we're told. And again, folks, if you could stay about 6 inches away from that microphone, you'd avoid overloading the sound system. Jim Redden, you're next, followed by Wendy Tamura and Sherry Davis.
Yeah, everything like Alan said, absolutely. I'm going to take a different tack on this a little bit, and I'm going to talk about how I appreciate your humanism and you being humanists. And, you know, just quickly, for those who need a quick jog, humanism is about addressing the values and the agency of human beings. It's about bringing critical thinking to issues, and it is about observable action. So when Rick talked about that SMART metric system, that's all wonderful stuff. But in a sense, I really want you to avoid the trap of political relativism. So in other words, if there's a straw man argument that's brought about by fear, let's address that. Let's go with the empirics. Let's go with the facts. So if the airport is a factually driven thing, let's work in that realm. Let's work with facts and not fear. In terms of like management of projects and many things, I get the feeling that you guys personally, your resources are taxed for what you go through in your task of being councilman. So this notion of bringing in infrastructure and putting together a system of technology to empower the collective intelligence of all of us, I think, is a really great thing to do. And it was kind of, Sue mentioned it to me today, and I thought, you know, maybe later afterwards I'll follow up with you guys in an email and give you some actual specifics on this, to how this might work. When you do bring into practice the community, you get emergent properties, you get novel ideas, you bring in people who want housing in a certain way, you have people who want to oppose housing in a certain way, and what happens is, through the tug of war, these problems that are not solved become manageable. And I appreciate this notion of having this retreat today, because it's exactly it. So just in closing, I think that if we could just get Kevin certified as a bulldozer operator, I think that would be a really good step in the right direction. Thank you.
Next is Wendy. Wendy Tamira, are you here? Chicago. Apparently not. Sherry Davis. And folks, when I do call names, would you be so kind as to stand up and be in line so we get through this? With Sherry, we're halfway through the people who have asked to speak. So moving this forward is important. And after Sherry will be Paula Larmore and Gigi D. Portelis.
Good morning. I'm Sherry Davis, Chair of the Education Advocacy Group Community for Excellent Public Schools. No question about it, you have a very tough task this morning. But it seems crystal clear to us that there is one of the 12 potential priorities that can achieve all of the laudable goals. It's game-changing, broad community support, makes a real difference. It would make a real difference in community safety, well-being, prosperity, quality of life, and sustainability. And that one is number 12. That's the building on the partnership with SMMUSD and SMC to emphasize Santa Monica as a learning community from cradle to career and beyond. So inherently reflects so many things that are special about Santa Monica. So many of us have been advocates together for education for well over a decade. So pause to consider the impact our city's support for our public school has had on the lives of children in our community. Many of them weren't even born when we started our efforts together. Their experiences in our local schools are dramatically better than they would have been without the support we've provided as a community. So the decisions you make today will affect today's babies and tomorrow's generations. There's no more powerful preventive measure to address poverty, enhance lifetime health, economic potential, and well-being than a good education. And starting school ready is the best way we know to address the achievement gap. This metric is doable. SEPS has had one-on-one conversations with each of you and heard you strongly support education. We're at a critical moment where we ask you to make a tangible decision to support education. Please make a decision that will protect your our multi-million-dollar investment in our schools, and we ask you to elevate number 12 to one of your top priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula, you're next.
Paula Larmor with Harding Larmor Kutcher & Kozel. I want to urge the council to prioritize the approval of housing, including affordable housing, as a top priority. I felt the need to come here today to ask you this on a Sunday because the council has been stating that it prioritizes housing repeatedly over the past 3 years at least, but the city's performance in improving housing is very weak. In fiscal year 2013 and 2014, the city approved only 13 housing units, none affordable. In fiscal year 2014-2015, the city approved a few more units, approximately 42, with 5 affordable. I just want to take a pause. The council has been prioritizing housing, but the production has been weak. I don't think it's acceptable, given the regional housing shortage, the city's jobs, housing imbalance, which has a significant impact on traffic here, and the council directly saying that housing is a priority. In 2013, the council voted to prioritize specific housing that had a mix of units, namely 30% of the units being 2 and 3 bedrooms. Since then, housing developers changed their projects to meet this unit mix, and it's now been 2 years, and none of these projects have been brought forward to you. I don't want to be critical of the council or the planning commission or staff in this regard because I know you are under a legal obligation to approve the zoning ordinance. I sat through about 33 hearings at the planning commission, so I understand how much work that took. But now is the time. You can't delay approving housing units anymore. You need to bring forward these projects that have been sitting since 2011, 2012, and 2013 that still haven't been heard. These applicants have changed their projects. They've hired terrific architects. You have the deepest levels of affordability and most number of affordable units you've ever seen. The projects are here. They're ready to be approved. Please prioritize them. Thank you.
Gigi, you're next, followed by Bruce Rankin and Patricia Hoffman.
Hi, I'm Gigi DePortales. I want to thank you all for all the great things you've already done for Santa Monica. It's a great city. My family benefits from the Cultural Affairs Department, the Sustainability Plan, and the schools. I have lived here and raised my children in a rent-controlled apartment. I'm a single mom. And I want to encourage you to really come together to look at affordable housing, which is for people like me that are supporting their children and putting them through school, and not just, when people say affordable housing, they think I'm talking about just poverty, but it's really for the people that have lived here and moved here because it was an incredible city. And I also, I want to encourage you not to be moved by the angriest, the loudest, the most, and maybe this is changing, but hopefully not just people that are run by fear and that are run by an agenda based on privileged and old ideas, because we have this incredible opportunity to do great things here. I work for business, and it's been shocking to me how amazingly committed they are to community and to doing the right thing and to dealing with homelessness and to deal with making the city better. They're not the enemy. We're all coming together, and I just want to thank you for doing that again and again.
Thank you. Lisa Sandbank, would you please see the city clerk? Our next speaker is Bruce. Hi, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Rankin. For the past 26 years, I've been executive director of Westside Food Bank. We provide from our warehouse food for food assistance agencies throughout the community. Also, I'm on the board and an officer of the Westside Coalition, and that coalition actually includes nearly 50 social service agencies, congregations, and cities, including Santa Monica. We stand as a coalition able to help with the city with regional challenges because we serve a wider area. And we've recently, over the last year, added health-related nonprofits to our organization, recognizing the interrelations of poverty, health issues, and homelessness. I want to emphasize, of course, that Santa Monica is a very high-cost community, so there are literally thousands of families in this community that are at risk of homelessness, and those programs that help the city, our community, prevent homelessness are very key. In terms of the homelessness issue, I've reviewed the attachment B, which lists city staff's sub-goals under that and find them very thoughtful and worthy of consideration. Of course, the homelessness issue is related to other issues listed here, great service to the community, enhancing an inclusive and diverse community, and improving community engagement. And I think on that last one, there's quite a bit of work to be done, given that we ourselves are not a very diverse crowd, and we could involve a much wider segment of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia, you'll be followed by Elizabeth Vandenberg and Mike Gruning.
3, 4, 10, thank you. No, actually, I'm going to say something too. But I think I think that John Mims did such a great job on expounding on the values of affordable housing in Santa Monica, and so I'm not going to go into great detail on that. In light of what City Manager Cole said at the beginning of the meeting, I think goal number 10.
We seem to have lost the microphone, so give us a moment to figure that one out, and we'll hold your time. Has the The public appears to have outlasted the battery. I hope we have a spare. Do we have another mic we could swap in for the moment? There's really no way to move these. These are wired mics, so. Patricia, would you mind coming and sitting at the table while the other mic is coming? We'll give you your 2 minutes up here at the table. You'll need to press the button on that. I'll need to unpress my button for you to be able to speak.
Let's see if you're good. Okay, here you go.
Well, it is a pleasure to sit up here with you, and I was talking about I was talking about item number 10, where our city manager said that there were only 458 potholes, and yet on item number 10, there is a desire to patch 800 potholes per year. So I think we're going to all have to go out and start digging potholes to fix. I want to, I think this initiative is really, what you have on this paper is really good, and I do recognize that it's too much for all of us to handle together in the course of the year. But on whichever numbers you land on, please include accessibility, transparency, and equity as an underlying factor in each of these initiatives. So thank you very much.
We only have one mic at a time on up here. Elizabeth, come join us here at the table until we get a microphone.
I'm very excited about joining the City Council. Thank you. Good morning, Mayor McEwen, City Council members, City staff, and City residents. Elizabeth Vandenberg, and I'm a Wilmot board member. I believe the priorities of the city should be the following: assure safety of the residents, visitors, tourists, and businesses. This would include identifying and developing finance strategies for retrofitting soft-story buildings. The south branch of the Santa Monica Fault runs diagonally across the Wilmot neighborhood that has a significant number of soft-story buildings. In addition, I'm concerned about the needed fire and police resources to ensure the safety of the additional people brought by the expo and by the proposed increase in height and density of the city. Second, preserve existing neighborhoods as promised in the loose. The highest priority of the community was the preservation of the existing character and scale of Santa Monica neighborhoods. The community wants the preservation of the neighborhoods. This includes the boulevards and avenues, which we consider our neighborhood commercial streets. Do not allow encroachment into Wilmot via allowing Tier 3 on the north side of Wilshire. Do not allow downtown to continue to ooze into Wilmot via 2nd Street encroachment. Place a clear and permanent line between downtown and neighborhoods. And do not allow commercial activities in the middle of our neighborhoods, as was done via the planning staff recommendation to allow alcohol at the Embassy Apartments Palisade location in the heart of Wilmot. Third, make the enterprise funds completely self-supporting and eliminate subsidies from the general fund. We know from staff reports that the Early Childhood Education Center planned construction on the Civic Center land has received $5.5 million in general fund money, has taken land that could have been used to generate revenue for the Civic Center, and does not have a third-party transactional rent rate with Santa Monica College, i.e., it will charge Santa Monica College only $1 a year in rent. In the current capital improvement program, part of the budget, the general fund has been identified to provide pier electrical upgrades for over $3 million. Why is this not being paid for out of the pier fund and enterprise fund instead of general fund monies? Make development standards across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have the other microphone working now. Mike Gruning, I called your name, but I don't see you here. Okay. If when I call people's names, they'd be so kind as to stand up and be ready, because that'll save us some time. The next speakers will be Louise Steiner and People of California.
My apologies, I hadn't heard you. Good morning, Mayor and council members and City Manager. Mike Gruning, 2920 Nielsen Way. I'm a past chair of the Chamber and a current steering committee member of Community for Excellent Public Schools, and I wanted to echo Sherry Davis's comments. I want to laud you for your past support of schools. It's been groundbreaking and innovative, and I urge you to continue that support. There's a direct nexus between fully funded education system and a vibrant economy. We in the business community support that proposition. I'd also ask you to continue to explore the expansion of the collaboration between the city, and SMMUSD, and the college. Thanks so much. Oh, also, as Rick was saying, there was no particular order in terms of 1 versus 12, but I would like it if you would make that inverse, make 12 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Louise, you're next.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here, and I'm very lucky to live in this wonderful city. I've lived here for almost 40 years, and I've seen changes, some for the good and some for the not so good. And lately, my issue has been with mobility. I gave up my car 3 years ago, knowing the bus would system, the big blue bus would take me shopping locally to my doctor, etc. And because of this new transit system coming in, the bus system has been in a state of chaos. Just today, I couldn't get here with the number 7 bus or the Rapid 7. It's been taken off my route as well. The number 1 is going to be taken away. I will have to walk 6 blocks to my nearest bus stop. There's going to be no bus that will connect me to the buses that I use. And so I think there was a little bit of haste in rerouting a lot of the buses before the transit system was set up. And as far as mobility on the sidewalks, it is very dangerous for me to walk. There are bicycles that practically mow me down, and then if I'm not dodging them, I'm dodging skateboarders, and they are very scary entities. I think we should keep skateboards off the sidewalks. Also, affordable housing. I was here when the City Council approved corporate housing, which wiped out over 100 of units in my neighborhood for middle and low income people were thrown out. Whole neighborhood was decimated. And then the Ellis Act came in, and now we have vacation rentals. So there are really no residents left in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going by first name today, so the next will be People, followed by Denise Barton and Stacy Dalgleish.
Yeah, okay, so I would like to point out, first off, great points about the problems with the Big Blue bus system. You guys say you want to increase bus ridership, and yet you're raising the prices. I don't think you have to have a degree in calculus to figure out that that is going to have a negative impact on bus ridership. People are going to stop using the buses as much as possible. Now, if your goal is to socially engineer, force people to ride bikes or walk instead of take the bus, then perhaps that's what you want to do. You want to keep them off the bus on their bikes, because that's what I'd rather do than pay $1.50 to ride 6 blocks or wait 10 minutes for the bus that's late anyway. I notice here on your first item, world-class customer service to the community, you have 0 metrics and 0 goals. It's because you're assuming that everything you're doing, all the rest of this nonsense, is somehow helping the community. You know, I think for people who love development and, you know, the idea of mobility and other pseudo-progressive moonshine, they will be very happy with this set of goals. But the reality is that your mobility model is about social engineering and forcing people out of their cars, when in fact, with Terry O'Day's electric car franchise, there's no reason to do that, right? Everybody's going to be driving sustainable electric vehicles. So really, this is just about forcing people into buses for no reason, because, you know, the reality is it's not going to hurt the environment if everyone's driving electric cars, right? And of course, that's the future. So why are we forcing people into buses when there's no climate sustainability impact? Your homelessness program, you're going to take 206 out of the 1,500 or 2,000 people on the streets. I mean, small bite, easy to get, I guess. The control of the airport, you know, I mean, the reality is you're never going to get it. And when you do, all you're going to get is a bunch more development condos. Good luck dropping your traffic numbers, and your sustainability index is going to go way out the window. Now, everything else, you've got your top-down, cradle-to-career management of numbers and whatnot for the kids. Basically, this is an intrusive reach into people's lives by billionaire nefarious types like Mr. Bloomberg.
Denise, you have requested 2 minutes, but also indicated a donation of time. Did you want 4 minutes with the donation? Is that what you meant to put on the card? Then is Catherine Eldridge here? Could she? Okay. So you have 4 minutes, Denise.
Good morning. Another unannounced secret city council meeting. So let's look at the nonsense and lip service you're trying to spin and sell now. First, what a scam to base your interpretation of the well-being of the city on a phone survey of 2,000 out of 92,000 residents. Obviously, this is so the city looks better than it really is for grant funding. Again, more fraudulent information for grant funding. Now let's look at the special interests of yours, starting with Pam O'Connor Transportation. I found it very interesting that you want to establish a new model for mobility, basically verifying what I've been saying, that loose is a lie because those goals haven't been met yet. Next, affordable housing. How can you feel the residents want to be responsible for another $12 million in funding a year when you can't support the existing affordable housing program without significant funding from the general fund? You're still fighting a losing battle to close the airport. How hard is it to understand that the FAA holds the title to the airport property? So how can you control property you don't hold title to? You should expect homelessness to increase after the expo line opens. They will all flood here due to the services available. And I can't understand how a sobering center, medical detox beds, or a medical substance abuse treatment program for the homeless is the financial responsibility of the residents. Then the Civic Center. Does Rick Cole know you've already taken out a loan to rehabilitate the Civic, or that you used it to rebuild Structure 6? Next, sustainability, another scam to rationalize increasing the population. Have you seen the brown cloud of pollution sitting over downtown? And again, why can't the city schools and colleges live within their means? Next, Terry O'Day being co-chair of BTC Power, the company the city contracts with for electric vehicle charging stations. Seems like a conflict to me. Then, of course, development is included, also known as paying off your campaign contributors. We all know you can't get a development agreement or a contract in the city without paying off the city council. By the way, might there be a conflict when 3 or more downtown Santa Monica Inc. board members have project in front of you in one time period? And what happened to your continuing your discussion on the ethics ordinance? Obviously, it's not a priority to you. And on that thought, how could we forget downtown Santa Monica Inc., since you want to strengthen downtown as a community hometown? But that ship sailed a long time ago, because there is very little to attract residents, as well as residents not wanting to go to an area which is geared toward tourists. Or look at it this way. If on a Saturday it takes 20 minutes to get from 7th to 5th Street on Arizona, do you not see that you already have a significant problem which needs to be taken care of? Which also makes me question how the downtown specific plan can be CEQA exempt. Again, considering the present brown cloud of pollution which can be seen above downtown. I personally think you'll pick transportation and mobility, affordable housing, development, infrastructure, downtown, and the schools. The residents' well-being and communication with the residents isn't in your priorities again. Saying the worsening of the residents' quality of life doesn't really matter to you. Finally, Rick Cole the phony, who wants us to think he's different, but he really isn't. He doesn't want to listen to the residents. He just wants to tell them what's going to happen 6 times a year. Didn't Rod Gould do that too? Once again, what nonsense and lip service. Thank you.
Denise, I'm glad you somehow found your way to our secret unannounced meeting this morning. Stacy, you're next, followed by Natalia Zanetskaya and Buria Finkel.
Good to see you again. Hi, my name is Stacy Dalgleish. I live in the Mid-City area, and I am a board member of Mid-City Neighbors. I've been a resident and/or a business owner in Santa Monica since 1980. I'd like to address number 6 and number 9. Number 6 is sustainability, and number 9 is downtown as hometown. First of all, I got my new smart gas meter this week, and I want to thank you for that, along with the smart electric meter that I have that enabled me to reduce my electric bill from $259 to $64. And along with that, I want to encourage you to pursue the same smart meter technology for water. I know in hearing the gentleman from Santa Monica Water speak, I understand that it's a completely different engineering issue. And I hope that you're able to figure that out, because obviously it would make a huge difference. In the meantime, enforcing the current code for individual meters, water meters for multi-unit housing, I think is something that needs to be pursued. Moving on to downtown as hometown, I think that a lot of us who live farther from downtown would very much like to participate in removing traffic from the downtown area. And in order to be able to do that, we need to be able to either ride a bike, which, thank you for the breeze, I did ride my bike down here today, or have smaller vehicles that are regular and frequent, and for people who are unable to use the bicycle or walk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned the breeze. It's in a test mode now. There'll be 500 bikes on the streets by November, so something to look forward to. Natalia, you're next.
Good morning, City Council and members of the public, Mayor McEwen and everybody. And first off, thank you all so much for being here on a Sunday morning. I know how hard it was for me to get out of bed this morning, so I'm sure it was just as difficult for you all. So I just wanted to touch on two of the points that were brought up. Number 4 and number 11. I'll just touch on number 11 really quickly, taking community civic engagement to the next level. Obviously, everybody here is very well involved. They know what's going on, but I feel like new residents might not know. So maybe if there was a way to use social media to get new residents of Santa Monica involved. I was just talking to like one of my Pilates instructors the other day, and she just moved here with her husband and their 2-year-old. And I told her, hey, this is a really great way to get involved, because she's really interested. So I gave her some of the government websites and other ways to get involved. And number 4, maintaining inclusive and diverse community by increasing housing accessibility. A lot of people have already spoken about creating more housing at all levels of affordability, and I think that's really important. And not just rental units. I feel like getting people a way to own their own property, whether it be a condo, single-family homes. I know I can't afford to buy a condo or a house right now, and I would like to own some property in the future. And I would like that to be in Santa Monica, but you know, if you can find a way to create a program for affordable condos for people who want to live here, that'd be a really great opportunity. And I know that you've all made really, really great strides, Community Corporation of Santa Monica, other affordable housing options, but please create more, please, for the kids of Santa Monica. For me, I may be a little selfish in asking for more housing, but come on, more housing, yay, thank you.
Berger, you're next, followed by Deborah Lynch and Kent Strumpel.
First, I'd like to welcome Rick Cole to our community. Nice to have you here, Rick. Getting involved, this community has been involved, you know, for many years, as long as I remember it, making priorities short. I would support that highly with short timelines. The professional staff that we hire is excellent, really, and has been the top of the line as far as we are concerned and as far as the general community is concerned. But we have a habit of not listening to them. A case in point is Bergamot Art Center. So I would like to talk to you about the issues of the arts in the city. We have integrated the arts into our life and into our space, but we are not moving with it. We have 3 very center places, which are Bergamot Art Center, Civic Center, and the airport. All of those have been in the planning for a long time, but none of them have come to fruition. And part of the problem in that is that I think Rick put it together. It is not addressed as a specific project, and it's not given a timeline. And I would recommend that you do that. As far as the downtown, I think we have an opportunity that is extremely interesting and extremely important at this time in our life in the city. We have an opportunity to demand excellence in architecture. We have an opportunity to demand an integration of that into the visual life in the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Deborah, you're next.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Lynch. I've been in the Santa Monica community for probably a little bit over 25 years now. There's two issues that I think are a primary concern to everyone in Santa Monica. The first centers around your homelessness and your affordable housing again. Unfortunately, I think it's in general terms here, and I think the reason you keep having trouble with it is because the mechanics of the issue are almost impossible to best, okay? To understand what affordable housing means, you need to put it in perspective with the remainder of LA County, okay? In Santa Monica, a single individual can rent a one-bedroom apartment if they make close to $48,000 a year. That is the individual that homeless individuals at the very top of your priority list are competing with. So it's one or the other. That's a recipe for disaster and failure in my book, okay? In the County of Los Angeles, I believe you qualify for affordable housing if you don't make over $25,000 or $28,000 a year. That's almost half. No competition. Okay, those people are housed. Hence, the reason that if your homeless problem does move down and you get rid of it, it is because you are exporting it back to the County of Los Angeles. You're not really housing those people here. You're importing workers from downtown LA that used to service homeless people down there, hiring them here, and getting them to export or ship out your homeless problem. I understand it because a lot of your homeless problem came from that direction. But there's a lot of us that didn't, okay? That's number one, okay? Two, busing. Ugh. Oh, well, next time.
Well, thank you. Kent, you're next, and you'll be followed by Dolores Sloan and Maria Leon Vasquez.
Great, thanks. Hi, Kent Strumpel. Thanks for another great opportunity to participate in the civic life of our community. I want to draw your attention to the sustainability item that was on the list. And I'd like to suggest that it's maybe not so much a individual choice amongst the others, but more of a lens to help you evaluate how to prioritize the other ones. I believe this is an issue that is becoming increasingly important in our world. We see it in the news virtually every day now. It is becoming a global crisis. Scientists are frankly shocked by the pace that it's progressing at. And I believe if anything is going to become a game changer in our lifetimes, it's going to be climate change and global warming. It's fast approaching. It may seem distant, but you know, we're already feeling it with the water shortage and nearby fires, and soon we could be seeing, you know, problems with food availability, heat waves that are increasing, migration of infectious diseases, economic downturns could be hot on the heels of it. So I really do believe it's an issue that has an opportunity to be addressed in so many of the priorities that you're looking at, you know, mobility, water, energy, housing, really the gamut of them. So I encourage you to redouble our efforts. We've always been, you know, held sustainability as a guiding principle for the city, but I think we really need to redouble our efforts and our creativity and the resources that we're devoting to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dolly, I had you next on the list.
Thank you. Oh boy, a mic that adjusts to me. I want to recommend to the City Council that you consider changing the the evening that you have your meetings, because when you have them on Sunday, look at all the humor and the goodwill that we're having here. And you also run the risk that you'll have fire and brimstone, because it's Sunday, but you can take that risk. Anyway, I'm really glad to be here. I'm so pleased to see that we're using this technique of measurable objectives, and I urge everyone to see it as a progressive document to keep evaluating your timelines and your tasks and add new categories as they become manifest. And I'm here to talk about two basic things, housing and historic preservation. On housing, folks before me have been very eloquent on what I was going to say. So I'll just ask the question, affordable housing for whom? And what has happened is that the term affordable no longer has meaning because it has a big scope of definitions. So my recommendation is to break it down into simple language, affordable for different classes of income, and take away the percentage as a definition because it doesn't mean anything to people. We must speak the same language. For example, here are some of the folks who can no longer live in Santa Monica. Well-educated professionals, skilled craftsmen, human and social service folks, educators, professors, carpenters, designers, nurses, and my sons and daughters. And yet we don't come under any of the categories on which affordability is funded here. Now I want to talk about historic preservation. I agree with Carol Lemline, my good colleague who spoke earlier. You need to add that to the list because it is a big contributor to public well-being, which is one of the goals of this whole process.
Thanks, Dolly.
Thank you.
Maria, you're next, followed by Ann Thanawala and Chris Baca.
Well, I'll say good morning and afternoon because I was here a little bit earlier. But thank you so much. You know, I just want to give my welcome to Rick. I'm glad you're on as part of this team in the city. And thank you because he was part of our convocation with the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District just last week. So he got to see a lot of the pieces that and the strategy that we're going to be taking on as part of SMMUSD. And that's what I come here today is using number 12 as being one of your priorities there. Not so much in terms of helping us strategize, but hopefully to support whatever the strategies that Santa Monica Malibu Unified and Santa Monica College put on the table so that you can hopefully in this situation help us fund and be supportive in terms of staff to work our particular agendas. On September 17th, we're going to be having the first meeting between both organizations. It's never happened before, but at least at this point, we hopefully will begin to have conversations in terms of what the pre-K through 14 or 16 agenda looks like. Now it's 16 because we're one of the first Santa Monica community colleges that has a BA, we'll be offering a BA. And I talk because I am an elected official for the school district, but I also work for the college. So for me, education to me means pre-K through 16. So I thank you that, and hopefully we will be working more together in terms of once we get our strategies working as a pre-K through 16 piece. The other thing is also I've been a resident here of Santa Monica since 1959. So I was here for many of you that didn't know that before the freeway was here and living in the Pico neighborhood and lost my housing. So in that sense, when we talk about affordable housing, I agree with the prior speaker, affordable for whom? And I'm not in favor of, just market rate housing because market rate housing, none of us could live there. None of us. Unless your two adults are making six-figure incomes a year, then maybe you could afford it. Otherwise, you can't. So it's affordable for those that through all spectrums, from students through workers here and teachers and everybody on the spectrum. And the other piece, of course, is traffic.
Thank you. Ann, you're next.
All right. Thank you. Hi. Thank you, everybody, for being here and giving me the opportunity to speak.
I want to start and just mimic number one, which is my number one issue. I'm going to say, just give it to the people of California, because he said it exactly the way I would want to say it. Number two, when we're talking about affordable housing, that's my second priority. And I'm going to mimic Maria and the speaker before her. And also my husband's suggestion, which is to tax the unaffordable housing in order to get more affordable housing in the city. That's the only way to do it. There's a lot of unaffordable housing that needs taxed. Number three, the infrastructure. That's my number three on the list. We need to deal with those soft story structures. We need to deal with issues with potential earthquake. My last on the list, and what I think should be wiped off this list, is the Cradle to Career Initiative. I'm working with the World Privacy Forum. We've got some real issues with what's going on nationwide with the Cradle to Career Initiative, the way the data is being collected, the way the data is being sold, and misused. So I'm happy to speak with anyone, meet with anyone to discuss this further. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, you're going to be followed by Joe Schmitz, and Wendy Tamira will try you one last time.
Hi, I'm Chris Bach. I'm the Executive Director over at Meals on Wheels, and we're based in the Pico neighborhood. And looking at your list, I see two items that I think actually may not need to be on the list because we're actually doing a good job at it, which is number one, which is world-class service, and number 11, the involvement of the community. I think the City of Santa Monica staff and the council do a great job of that and just continue that. So I don't think those need to be high on the priority list. And like so many other people, I think housing is an important issue here, and many people have spoken very eloquently about that. But from my point of view, it is not just about housing, but it's about keeping people in those houses. So, you know, the services Wise and Healthy performs, the food bank, and other social entities here are really important to this city, and I would urge the city to continue to fund those and support those. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Hi, Lisa Sandbank was going to donate time. I guess that didn't happen, and I'll have 2 minutes. Okay.
That's correct.
First of all, I want to say that I've interacted with you. I've seen you, some of you, up at D.C. in July. I've been deeply impressed by the care and the thoughtful deliberation that you show. I've also met Rick Cole, and I think it's just wonderful to have him here. I would argue that you've appointed me as airport commission, and I guess I'm the only pilot who has so been appointed. I bring some expertise, aviation system safety. I'd like to share that with you. I think we're at a decision point, really. I'm not a lawyer, and I would not comment on legal affairs. I am an aviation safety expert, and the Metroplex, the FAA Metroplex, as it stands, makes SMO a 24/7, 365 BizJet airport. We sent the factory to Long Beach, and we kept the BizJet part of it. We talk about being a green city. We spend perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars on the buses and the bikes and the infrastructure. If you look at what the jets do, especially the fine particulates, they're a cancer on Sunset Park. I speak to you as an aviation system safety guy. If you look at the layout of all the things that are waived, it is just a matter of time until we have a jet accident, perhaps like the Bin Laden accident in England. We have no runway protection zone, and that's going to end up at the previous airport commission's in residence. So I would urge you to make a choice. I would urge you to respond to the FAA and demand that we have the western parcel. It is a non-aviation parcel, and we own it. That ends the jet port. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I've now called Wendy Tamira twice, and she hasn't come forward, so I'm going to mark her as not being present, although she did request to speak. And that concludes all the requests we got in time. Now, we do have some late chits we'll deal with in a moment, but I couldn't help but notice that nobody complained about parking, and I just found out why. Parking validations for today are available from the city clerk. So see the city clerk before you leave, and that took care of the parking problem for the moment. We do have late chits, council. We have 5 of them. What is the council's pleasure?
Move to hear for 1 minute.
And it's the usual motion to hear for 1 minute. All in favor? Aye. So we'll be hearing these 5 people who turned their request to speak in a little bit late for 1 minute each. Lisa Sandbank, Nick Bowles, and Rochelle Finale are the first 3. Lisa, go ahead. You're first. Lisa, could you go ahead, please?
I prefer Joe got the 2 minutes, but since that wasn't...
That's not what was marked here, sorry.
Yes, I know. In lieu of being able to give Joe Schmitz 2 minutes, I'm here with mine. I'd like to tell you that he has information on his website, on the city website about the safety. I'm sorry, I just got that. This year, a 30-year contract ends. We all don't have a plan for that. So I think this year we need to prioritize that wonderful land that we won in Measure LC. And thank you very much for creating that measure. I'm very appreciative of it. I'm here to say that I think securing local control of the city land occupied by the Santa Monica Airport should be one of our top strategic goals this year, based on health impacts, environmental impacts, and our need for open spaces. And our metric should be no jets. If a jet landed early at SMO, it would crash into homes in West LA.
Thanks, Lisa. Sorry, but 1 minute is a short time. Nick, I don't see you here. You put in a request late to speak. Is Nick Bowles here? Apparently not. I'll hold it just for a moment. We'll go on to Rochelle Finale. Rochelle, you'll be followed by Kara Brown and Mike Feinstein.
Thank you very much. Rochelle Finale here on behalf of Santa Monica Malibu PTA Council, which represents 11 PTAs in Santa Monica and roughly 5,000 members. And I'm here on behalf of that organization to urge you to keep initiative number 12 as one of your top priorities, continue the collaboration with SMC and SMMUSD to accomplish great things for our youth. On all of our shoulders sits the responsibility for the educational and economic prosperity of our youth. We've already successfully partnered on so many ways that you're well aware of to benefit our youth. Recently, kinder parent welcome events throughout our city with the city and the PTA and the school district to welcome new parents and underscore the kindergarten readiness campaign, one example of a most recent effort. There are so many more ways we think that we can collaborate to strengthen the connection between our youth and our city. Beyond the very tangible impact of financial resources, our city and youth really benefits, our kids really benefit from this partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle. Kara, you're next.
Thank you. Hi everybody. Regarding creating a diverse society on your agenda, and while on the subject of affordable housing, are there any plans to redirect or amend your recent ordinance on vacation rentals? It seems that vacation rentals are your scapegoat for your apparent lack of affordable housing. And hopefully we allow more fair stays at small units, although I'm happy that R1 guest houses are allowed to house travelers without a host in them. It's unfair to the rest of us. Additionally, remember, these are our homes too, and it helps us residents afford to live here. I would like to see you put the tot taxes towards affordable housing rather than draconian and Nazi-like enforcement with sting operations and asking residents to call on each other. And jail time. Thank you.
And we're going by first names, but I will say former mayor, Mike.
Thanks, President Mayor Kevin. Adding my voice to the folks who want us to close SMO, I want to just build on the Parks and Open Space that Ted had raised and remind that in the late 90s, for a short period, we had committed to put money aside every year into a fund to be able to buy open space when it became available. That's how we bought the Plastic Mart building, which enabled us to make Virginia Park much better. I also want to see you get direction to staff to work with the City of LA. I talked to Eric Rossetti about this, to lobby for federal funding to cap the I-10 freeway as a form of green urban infill to make cities more livable with the densities that we're having in this region. That's where we're going to find the funding to cover the I-10. And since LA is lobbying for it for the 101 and downtown, that's an effort to start that process. And by sometime in the middle of the 2020s, we'll probably have convinced the feds that that's a place to put climate change mitigation money as green urban infill. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Nick Bowles, last chance. All right, well, that closes the public hearing on this matter, Council. Now, I think we heard some interesting convergence of opinions, actually, in that public testimony, but not complete, and I think there's still some discipline that we are being asked to apply here, which is to narrow this list down to perhaps as few as 5 priorities, of which 3 will be the top priorities. We have each on the council been given 5 dots, 3 red and 2 green, and at some point we're going to be asked to make our recommendations by placing those dots on the easels that are around the room. I suspect before that we'd like to reflect a bit on the public comment we've heard and discuss these priorities before we commit ourselves each individually to which 5 we like. There's also the issue of a lunch break, and I'd hope we would get to the discussion, at least, and the initial selection of priorities before lunch, but we had more people testify than we thought. So can staff tell me, is the buffet lunch available at this point? And would the council prefer to discuss first and then have lunch, or take the lunch break now and then come back to the discussion? Well, we're hoping to adjourn at 1 o'clock. I don't think we anticipated quite the public input we were going to have. All right, so we have 1 vote to eat now. 1 vote that doesn't care. We're eating here at the table. All we're going to do is grab some food, and the public can grab some food too, as I understand it. Is it available now? That's correct. Then let's do that, and then we can come back and reflect and do some discussion. So we're temporarily recessed, folks. I'm going to try and bring us back here very, very quickly because we have a lot of work to do. City TV tells me we're good. So council, given that we have so much work to do today, if we could have quiet in the room, including from the public, please, we're reconvening the meeting. If the public could please pipe down. We're trying to have a meeting in this room. Ms. Kennedy, others, please. We are now returned from recess, and the reason why I'm moving us forward is that I know Gleam and perhaps others have other commitments. Gleam has a business trip today and an airplane to catch. So while the public is coming back in from the lunch break, I think it would be good if we began to reflect on what we heard, maybe go around the table once and just get some preliminary ideas before we then execute the actual exercise of placing our dots on the priorities and seeing how close to consensus we are as a city council. So Pam, you had asked to start on reflecting on what we heard from the public.
And turn this on. And I actually want to start a little bit with attachment A, because to give us a little context, the staff provided attachment A, and I actually have a few comments about that. I just want to put some things, attachment A talks about strategic projects and priorities that have shaped Santa Monica in that context. One of them is establishing rent control, which is, back there, or are they outside? Because you can always have your conversation outside, guys. So one of them, the first one, is establishing rent control. And you know, put that in context, that would not have happened if the housing had not been built in the prior decades, the multifamily housing. You wouldn't be having people needing to be protected in rent control. You wouldn't have the renters living here if previous councils had not had that housing built. Another one, creating the 3rd Street Promenade. Actually, that is kind of tied to also the drafting the downtown specific plan, because it was a redevelopment of the 3rd Street Promenade and also all of, frankly, downtown Santa Monica. And the drafting of the existing specific plan helped guide that, looking at the 3rd Street Promenade and all of downtown. And now we're moving forward on updating that, as well as having 25 years of success of the existing iteration of the 3rd Street Promenade, and you know, that is ongoing. Another comment here says, becoming a tourist destination. Santa Monica became a tourist destination in the late 19th century. That is what helped Santa Monica develop as a community, as a city. Why there were the folks who came here. So it really is about evolving into, when they say becoming a tourist destination, it was evolving over the 20th century, and in more recent years into a building on those natural resources, the ocean, et cetera. And sometimes success, like the success of the 3rd Street Promenade, ended up helping to energize that tourism. The earning a AAA bond rating, it's not just earning it, folks, it's maintaining it. So it's been maintained for, look at Elaine, how many years now? Going? A long time. And I was going to guess 20 years. At least 20 years. So it's not just earning it, it's that ongoing maintaining it. Again, that's done by fiscal budgeting and financial strategies. When we say offering general fund grants to human service and arts organization, I think it really is providing. What it is has to do is it's not just because they're general fund grants, but really using our social service and cultural service cultural nonprofits and folks there to provide the kinds of resources and activities for our community. When we talk about developing a cradle-to-career program, that also has to do with that ongoing implementation, and that is related to the lifelong learning. And nurturing Silicon Beach, really, that is happened because we created an infrastructure to create it. You wouldn't have happened, you can't nurture something unless you had created it and given it the infrastructure. And in terms of earning a Class 1 rating for the fire department, I think that's too narrow. What has happened is actually the whole public safety facility was built in recent decades, new emergency operations system. So that is tied to overall public safety. So I just thought in the strategic priorities, I wanted to at least kind of expand on that. I'll jump into, for myself, I think of the strategic goals. As folks know, I care a lot about transportation issues and mobility. And one thing I noted is that we also have number 10, and number 10 is expanding and improving the resilience of community infrastructure. But if you start looking at number 10, a lot of number 10 has to do with sidewalk repair. So there probably is a little overlap on number 2. I just want to point that out, where if we talk about things such as achieving a decrease in crash rates with walking and biking, that means we're going to be building an infrastructure that supports it. So I'm not, myself, not choosing number 10 as one of the top priorities, but I think that some of those metrics in it and some of the things there really do relate to number 2. Just speaking generally, we've heard a lot from the community today, and as I was kind of taking my notes as people were speaking, certainly one of the major themes was about maintaining that inclusive and diverse community by increasing housing accessibility and creating housing. So I think that is very important, and frankly, I think that also relates to number 3, reducing homelessness, because if we do have adequate housing and can keep people in their homes, and then we are going to be helping to not get more people into homelessness and bring them out. And for me personally, securing the land control of the city land that's occupied the airport is up there as a major priority. I would certainly add the 4th one of the learning community would be important to me. And I think the sustainable city, it's like number 6 is achieving water, energy, and climate change sustainability goals, and some of that underpins everything we do, our sustainable city plan. So I'm not sure if to call that out, that would make 5 for me, but that's kind of where I am leaning right now.
Well, interestingly, it sounds like you and I have the same top 3 priorities, so we may have some convergence here on the council as we had from the public. Who else has initial comments on what we heard from the public? Colleen?
Well, I guess I'd like to start out with my question or comment that I made earlier. Because for me, the purpose of going through this exercise is to identify some areas where we can do better than we're doing now, or do differently than we're doing now. And some of these priorities are priorities, but I think regardless of what they decide today, whether we want them to be or not, they will have to remain priorities. And the one I'm particularly thinking of, and I think it's interesting because there wasn't a metric under it, is the airport one. I think this council has repeatedly said that gaining control of the airport land is a very high priority for it. The question is, if we made it a priority today, what would we do differently, or what would be the different outcome than if we didn't make it a priority today? And I'm wondering if staff has any thoughts about that. Because, and let me just say, because I think so much of that is what's happening at the FAA. I mean, we could, you know, we have a lot of lawyers engaged, we have a lot of staff working. If we threw another, just to use a metric, $1 million in resources at it, would we change the outcome? That's the question I have. Oh.
Okay. As I alluded to before, Councilmember, that's a question on which reasonable people have differing views. And as someone 8 weeks into this, I'm trying to assess it personally as well. There's clearly going to be a legal process. How protracted and how complicated that legal process will be, your city attorney is best equipped to advise you on. At your meeting on this topic, when we were talking about leases, I made clear that I think we need to put additional resources on this, just because this is not strictly a legal battle. At least it's not strictly going to be fought out in the courts and in pleadings. There are operational concerns, and there are lobbying efforts, and there are advocacy efforts. So as to whether putting it on the agenda will on the 3 to 5 will make a significant difference in how we treat it, I think we're going to be resourcing this better regardless. I think the question really is more from a public standpoint of what does it mean to say to the council or to the community and to our neighbors and to the FAA that this is one of our top 5 priorities as a city in this particular time period.
Sorry, new system, not getting used, still getting used to it. And I appreciate that answer, because I do think I agree with, I guess as all my colleagues, that gaining control of the airport is a key benchmark that we've set for ourselves. I just don't know that we have a lot of control over the process, and I think that the kinds of resources that you're talking about are resources we're going to have to dedicate anyway, even if we didn't make it a priority, even if it wasn't on the list. So that's not to say it's not a priority for me, and it may end up in my top 5, but I think the comment I would like to make is, you know, and Councilmember Himmelrich asked about urgency. And I think that's a real issue, is what is the urgency, what will make the difference in people's lives. And for me, the criteria for how we select priorities should be 5 years from now. Can we say we accomplished something that we would not have accomplished had we not made it a priority, had we not put it on this list we're creating today? And someone suggested about looking through lenses, and I think that's a really great idea. For me, one of the things that I think is an urgent issue is we are losing our diversity. We're losing our socioeconomic diversity. We are losing our racial diversity. We are losing almost any way you measure it, our diversity within our community. And so for me, priorities that preserve that diversity are very important. So I would put housing of all sort as one of our priorities. Prior to this meeting, I asked for some information, and staff suggested that about 30% of the deed-restricted affordable housing that we've been creating over the last decade, if not longer, is a result of inclusionary housing policies. So if we only focus on building 100% affordable housing, not only will we fall short of our Measure R goals of 30%, because only about 20% is being produced, and that was in the salad days when we had redevelopment money, and we could pour a lot of money into 100% affordable housing. We don't have that anymore. I know on Tuesday, and I'm sorry to miss the meeting because of a business obligation, we're going to discuss about ways about creating resources, but I doubt they will ever be as generous, at least in the short term, as redevelopment was. And so I think housing across the spectrum, not only because we need to provide housing for people, as someone said, our children to move back here, people who are teachers, our firefighters, you know, who aren't able to live here now, but because by allowing the building of housing, we will get, through our inclusionary housing policies, a substantial chunk of deed-restricted affordable housing. Education, everyone knows that's a priority for me, but again, that is so key to the goal of sustaining diversity within this community. You know, I've said it 100 times, the best way to solve the achievement gap we see in our schools is not to let it develop in the first place. And the way we do that is with quality early childhood education. So the metric of improving kindergarten readiness for me goes right to the core of that. And not only the Stanford Poverty Project talks about the importance of breaking the cycle of poverty through early childhood education and other services and improving kindergarten readiness. So that, again, not only preserves diversity, but gives opportunity to the diverse members of our community, which is really important. Mobility, I think, is a key metric here. Not only is it important because the expo is coming and we need to devote resources to integrating that into our community, but if we increase mobility and opportunities for people to not own cars, for example, then they can put increased amounts of dollars to educational opportunities, to housing. They will be less financially insecure, and again, that allows people to remain in the community. Homelessness, talking about urgency. If we get 10 homeless people off the street, think what that means for those 10 people. And so for me, again, trying to figure out how do we create a diverse community that has opportunity for all and treats its citizens with respect and dignity. Homelessness is an issue. And then the final one for me, and I think it may be less apparent, but I think it really is about diversity, which is civic engagement, because it's the diversity of voices that we hear. We have a lot of people in this community who, for whatever reason, I think it's great all these people came out on a Sunday morning, but the question is, well, why didn't other people come out? How do we hear their voices? How do we hear the voices of the single mom who's working 2 jobs and can't come out on a Tuesday night and sit through a 5-hour meeting? How do we hear the voices of a recent college graduate who has a job that works unusual hours and finds it difficult or doesn't know how to engage with the community? How do we give voice to seniors who may not have technology available to them? So for me, looking through it and thinking about diversity as one of our core values, those are the items that come to mind as being key. But again, you know, I think, for example, the airport is a key issue. I'm just not sure 5 years from now, if we look back and said we made the airport a priority and the result was different, we get there. And the other area I just want to mention is sustainability. Looking at the metrics there, those are mostly metrics we've already adopted. Now, I understand that by not making it a priority, it might not be moving heaven and earth to get to those places. But I think that we as a community are doing our fair share on sustainability. I think we will continue to do that. And I think, quite honestly, if we build more housing, if we increase mobility opportunities, a lot of that will affect our greenhouse gas output and things like that, which are some of the metrics we mentioned in diversity. So at least those are my initial thoughts.
And Glenn, we're trying here to move this forward, to respect your business schedule, and I think it'd be important we at least get to the point where we make our determinations, if not discuss them a bit. So maybe we could keep our comments at this stage to those things we do intend to support, not why we don't intend to put dots on other things, just so we can get this done today. Tony.
On that note, you know, I agree with most of the comments that were made, and rather than to repeat them, I'll just zero in on some of the priorities I see. And for me, it's all about the airport. And I think what Rick mentioned earlier is that if we don't make it a priority, you know, and I think Glenn mentioned it right now, that, you know, we'll move forward. It seems to be a priority with the council as a whole. But I think if we make it the top priority, I think there's many things while we're waiting for this legal battle with the FAA move forward on that we could do now, like security. You know, there's a lot of measures we can put up at the airport that I think will move us in the direction to, one, make it safe, and then two, hopefully even deal with the curfew, these kind of things that if time permits and staff is focused on it, I could see that happening. Unlike education, where I'm a big fan of education, I don't see where staff really needs to spend any more time than it already is spending on the educational things. I think we have, and we heard from many of the experts here today on education. I'd rather put it on them, especially this joint meeting that's coming before the college and I think the school board, the two boards coming together. Let's piggyback on them and let them hammer that out and just be supportive of it, rather than us spend some of our valuable time on it. Diversity, I think, is a real big one for me as well. You know, we were listening to a lot of the folks here that testified, and I think our stats, if you look at the last 5 census, we haven't really grown. I mean, it's always, our population is always hovering around 90,000, plus or minus, but yet the diversity of this community has changed, which tells me as we're losing units while we're replacing them, we're replacing the physical unit, but not the people that live there. And I think one of the things we could look at, and one of the things I always thought about as we move forward, we know projects are going to come online where they're going to take housing out, is to kind of project out and almost look at building units, preparing for those that are going to be displaced. So as somebody's being displaced, you can say, here's a unit, as opposed to telling somebody, well, you know what, we're going to relocate you and you can come back after it's built. That doesn't happen. I mean, just look at the numbers. The Latino community used to be 19% when I ran in 1990. It's down to 14%. And the African American community, same thing. As a kid, I remember the Viceroy. That was actually going to be a black speakeasy club back in the day. And the city, in their wisdom, did eminent domain, took that property from those folks. And where is it now? It's gone. And that's just a couple examples. And there's so much that we've done, and sometimes indirectly, but I think we haven't, as we talk about diversity, I think our policies have always not been strong enough to protect the makeup of the community. So I want us to caution you on that. The homeless thing, I think, is a real big one for me. We have an opportunity finally, I think, to finally get the VA to do something there. I mean, for so many years, we haven't been able to get them to do anything. They're sitting on 200 plus acres of beautiful, pristine land there that's been underutilized. And it's been utilized by other entities that really have no business there. And for whatever reasons, they've actually taken advantage of a facility that really should be for the homeless vets. I mean, it's a crime. And I'm embarrassed by it, because as an elected official and a policyholder, I take issue with the fact that we haven't been able to do right by those folks that fought for us, for our freedom, and yet we let homeless vets roam our streets when you have 200 acres sitting just across the street from us here. And I think we need to do a better job, and I like to see that as a priority as well. And I guess the last thing I'll kind of end on is we talked about mobility, and for me, you know, some of these issues of mobility and the downtown piece all kind of fit into the affordable housing piece. And I think we heard it from many of the folks here today. I think we need to do a better job of creating housing for all levels in our not only here in this community, but folks that have been displaced, and hopefully they can one day come back.
Okay, there are 3 more council members who haven't spoken yet if they wish to, and then I'll wait till last as Mayor Sue.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, sir, I will. I want to say that for me, I'm looking at a few things. I'm looking at things I perceive as urgent, things I perceive as getting the most bang for our buck, and things that are really going to make a difference in the lives of people. And I think almost everything I care about comes under, and I agree with Gleam on this, it's all under diversity. Housing is about diversity, homelessness, civic engagement, mobility. I mean, and when you talk about mobility, we're also talking about an aging population that is having more and more trouble getting around either walking or by bike. And we need to think about them. We need to think about who's being displaced from the housing. And I think that this requires much more measurement, but I just want to say that affordable housing is defined in our city charter, and we have a Prop R report on it. And affordable housing is defined as housing that's affordable to people who make less, 100% or less of the area median income. Area median income right now is $64,800 as measured by HUD. That's for a family of 4. So, and of the 30% that we have this charter commitment to build, 50% of it should be for people at 60% of area median income. But basically, what we aren't talking about here is the housing that everybody, I think, is talking about for, you know, professionals and your children, et cetera, like that. Do I think we need to have a strategy for that? I do. And I think that there are other cities that have strategies. There are, you know, limited equity co-ops and various things where you can get into housing with little initial investment and eventually build it up. But my emphasis is on housing, and I think the rest falls into place. And by the way, I think the airport, I think we're underparked, and the airport would solve 2 problems. Again, I'm looking for things that solve 2 birds with 1 stone.
Gleam, I know you've got a business flight. How much additional time can you give us? Because I want to try and make sure we get this done right.
I actually moved my flight back from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., so I'm still very comfortable. I'm fine. Thank you.
Who else then? Terry.
Well, I agree with the council members who've been placing diversity in this list. I think that is the category that under which we can accomplish the most, and the urgency is probably most obvious, I think, in terms of how our community is changing. I would add sustainability here, because when we describe questions of, when we characterize this as a question of urgency, climate change is in our face, and it is affecting not just the natural environment, but the human impact is quite serious, and it is present in our own community. If we're serious about diversity and protecting at-risk populations, then climate change and addressing sustainability has to be there as well, and housing. As we heard other council members speak up about that, I won't say any more.
Ted, you're up.
Well, when I look at these lists, and I think it's important to emphasize what Rick said earlier, is that we're going to be choosing 5 or something like that out of this. It doesn't mean the others are going away, and we're going to be continuing to work on them. So to me, the lens through which I look at this process of choosing is, what are the things that we, 5 years hence, we look back and realize we had an imminent opportunity to address something that is really time sensitive and pressing, and we didn't deal with it. And the change as a consequence was for the worst. So I think, again, for me, to the top of that list is the inclusive and diverse community. There's no doubt that the forces of gentrification and all sorts of other factors are radically changing the face of our community, and we need to not only double down but triple down on that effort, because we will become a city we don't recognize, and we're beginning that process already and have been for some time. I think our metrics need to be a whole lot more ambitious. As talk here of 150 affordable homes by 2020, that seems to me woefully inadequate, so I think we really need to press hard on that. I think the other one clearly we have to address in the short term and put great emphasis is on its mobility. I mean, not only just for addressing the arrival of Expo, but just to the fact that the number of hours that are lost to being stuck in traffic, to productivity, the fact that our members of our community feel like they can't participate in what goes on downtown because they have trouble getting there. I think we hear all the time, mobility is a big issue, so we need to deal with that one. I'm concerned that, based both on the data and my own anecdotal observations, that homelessness in the city and in this region is taking a turn for the worse. And that's something that we don't start pushing harder on, both locally and regionally, we'll come to regret that 5 years from now. That's one of my priorities. The airport is certainly one of my priorities for a variety of reasons. If it's whether sustainability goals or open space goals, all sorts of things. In terms of metrics, that is a hard one to put metrics on, but to me, one of the things we do need to start working on is, with the airport, we seem to have a meeting once every 6 to 9 months, and then everything sort of stops. And I think we need to do a better job of engaging the members of the community who are concerned about that issue and letting them know what's going on, what we're thinking about doing next, et cetera, because it comes in fits and starts, and we keep saying, well, we're just waiting for the legal process to go through. There are many other efforts, as Rick has suggested, we can undertake in terms of engaging both the state and local governments and our neighbors next door on a political process as well as a legal process. So that one's very important to me. I'm sort of torn. I've always been a big advocate of sustainability. I agree with Gleam that we do actually have pretty sophisticated set of metrics already in the Sustainable City Plan that we look at on an annual basis. On the other hand, I agree with Terry that, it's no accident that in 2009, when the Pentagon looked around and decided what's the greatest threat to national security, they didn't choose ISIS, they didn't choose China, they didn't choose Russia, they chose climate change. So I think we need to be on top of that. At the same time, I'm a big advocate for education, so I believe that, this idea that we get our kids ready for kindergarten is a very important goal. So I'm a little conflicted about that.
Thanks, Ted. Well, I think the challenge for probably all of us is that we've all been advocates on many of these issues, and we have to recognize that by choosing a few as a focus, we're not abandoning the others at all. Now, I still have in my hot little hand the colored dots that you gave us, Rick, and the easels are calling out to them. And obviously, where I put the dots will, be the statement of my position. But I want to think a little bit about the process, the decision-making process. First of all, I've sat here reflecting on the public comment that we got, and of course, comparing that to my own thoughts and instincts on these issues, and doing that through the prism of values that I've held for many years, which I have to assume are affirmed by the community that's reelected me to the City Council, given me 5 terms. So I'm trying to combine all of those things the best I can to come up with the few things that should get the special attention that you've asked us to address. And as I do that, I'm looking first of all at what will have the biggest impact as a game changer. And some game changers move us forward, and some game changers keep us from falling backward. The one on diversity, I'm fearful of our falling backward into being an enclave for the wealthy because land here is so expensive. I'm also looking at these listed issues, though, in terms of how some of these priorities actually help the other possible priorities. What kind of synergy is there if we choose things that have multiple effects? So, for instance, in choosing mobility as a priority, we would be doing a great deal to help the issues with downtown, with light rail coming in. In choosing the maintaining an inclusive and diverse community, which I think I would do anyway, we're also helping with education, because a preschooler or a young student cannot achieve their full potential if their housing is insecure, if they're in a home with too few bedrooms for them to do homework, that sort of thing. Obviously, the inclusive, diverse community and the building of housing has a lot to do with homelessness. Homelessness is housinglessness, so we need to create housing to solve homelessness. Then I look at the local control of the airport. And first of all, I just have to acknowledge that we've already got a mandate, Council, from the voters of the city with Measure LC. This is one that we heard loud and clear last November, that the city wants us, the residents want us to secure local control of that land that we own. But it also could solve the problem of not having enough park space. It's 227 acres of pretty prime land. And it's a potential answer to our challenges with spaces for culture and the arts. And in fact, LC specifically said that that was one of the things that could be allowed on that land is cultural and arts uses. So I find the airport to be a very compelling priority. I have long been an environmentalist, a sustainability person. I don't think that will ever go away, nor should it. I think actually we are under greater pressure than we ever have been, and while our work has been exemplary, our focus has to be unwavering. So while that might not be one of my top 3 red dots, that'll certainly be on my list of priorities, as will be taking community and civic engagement to the next level. Now, many of us know that Santa Monica is famous for its level of civic engagement, and yet, as Rick mentioned in his presentation, there are difficulties not just here, but all over the country in how that discourse is happening. And I would like us to be leaders on how to have civic discourse. I would like us to address what the Wellbeing Report told us was a feeling of disenfranchisement among particularly younger people, but often many other people in our neighborhoods who feel that while they spoke and they were heard, it didn't make a difference. Well, you do make a difference, and we need to make sure you make a difference, and we need to make sure the process is such that you're making a difference is baked in. And I think we can do that. So that would be another of my secondary priorities. I think my top 3 are going to be diversity, mobility, and the airport. And interestingly, when I first sat down with you, Rick, you asked, well, what are you interested in doing? And I said, affordability, mobility, and transparency. Well, there it is. And I think what we heard today from the public supported much of that. I think it sounds as if the council is reasonably coming to a consensus on what are the most important issues. The way we've decided to find this out is very visual. Each of us council has 5 dots. As it's been explained to me, the red dots are your top 3 priorities, and the green dots indicate which other of the options are your priorities as well. So we each have a total of 5 priorities, of which 3 will be our prime priorities. And just as we ask the public at public meetings to put dots up on charts to tell us how they think, we're going to do the same thing. And this is hard. We have to make a final decision and put the dots up on the easels, but I think it's time to come and do that. So let's take a moment here, let's get up and let's place our dots and let's see where they lie.
Mr. Mayor? Excuse me, Kevin. The way we envision this, obviously this is a little bit artificial, but this is a very smart council, we've noticed, and they spend a lot of time talking to them and thinking about things, and this was a way to sort of cut through the discourse and look. And our thought was the ones that have a lot of red rise to the top. The ones that have a mix of red and green sort of fall next. And there may be 1 or 2 where there's just 1 or 2 reds, right? Where 1 or 2 of the council members really think something is significant would be in their top 5. But so it's up to you now to sort out what this means, what this pattern tells you. There's no scoring here. We're not gonna run any numbers. It's really a visual way for you to see what you and your colleagues think are the most important ones. And there's no magic to we're not looking for a top 3 and a 4 and 5. We're looking for 3 to 5. So maybe it's 3 priorities, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5. If it takes you to get unanimity, you want to add a 6th, that will not break the bank. But our goal is to get between 3 and 5 of your priorities.
So, Council, as we look around the room, and I hope members of the public can see all the easels, it's I'll turn that one, or would you, Gleam, since you're there, turn that so that people can see it? Because it appears to me, and I'll let you speak in a moment, so only one of us at a time can speak. It appears to me pretty clear from the constellation of red dots on... Yeah, can you angle it a little bit back so we can see it too? I still can't see it, Gleam, sorry. It looks to me as if there's a preponderance of red, that is priority dots, on mobility, diversity, and the airport. So let's start with that, Council. Is there anybody who feels that is not a fair consensus assessment of what we appear to, as a group, have indicated are our top priorities? Sue?
So I guess I say this all the time, but I think less is more. And my question is, if we said, okay, those are clearly the consensus top 3, and if we really are more focused on those 3 than 5 or 6, would that be better? Or let me put it this way, would our efforts be that much more intensified?
Yes.
20 questions. What's your next question? Anybody else with a comment on this, or are we going to Gleam?
Well, sort of understanding that less is more, I think makes sense, but by the same token, my question is, it's about making a difference. And while I see that mobility and homelessness in the airport clearly rise to the top 3, which is fine, it seems to me that the 2 that sort of follow behind there are 2 that really reflect our commitment to people who may not be, for lack of a better term, as successful in our society, and that's homelessness and the learning community. And I think that those are 2 areas where, while if we made them priorities, the priorities could be achieved, or the metrics could be achieved a lot through public and private partnerships. So while adding those 2 may increase the workload for city staff, I think it also, those are 2 things that are prime for working with other institutions and private individuals, non-governmental entities. And so adding them will not detract from the top 3. I am very concerned that we are, I don't want to say losing the battle, but obviously homelessness is an increasing problem, it's not decreasing. And that by not making it a priority, there are people who will directly suffer from that. And I feel the same thing about the education commitment, because the metric that's been decided is increasing kindergarten readiness, which not only improves children's performance in school, but really makes a difference in their life and breaks the cycle of poverty. So I would propose having those 2 be 4 and 5, if you will.
Okay, well, that's a step ahead of where we were starting from. But I think you're concurring that the top 3 are indeed, according to the red dots and much of the discussion we heard and what we heard from the public, going to be mobility, diversity, and the airport. So hearing no objection to that, Rick, that seems to be where we landed on the top 3. But as you've said, it's not a hard and fast rule that 3 is the number. Gleam has now suggested 2 others, which indeed, as I look at them, are the 2 others that got the most dots. So that would seem a reasonable proposal. How do others feel about that? Sue?
Well, I actually thought when I put my dot on diversity first, that the other 2 were subsumed in it. And so the way I used my greens were less, I have to say, because I believe that the homelessness issue is subsumed in our diversity and inclusive community, including housing issues, so which is really what the homelessness item is dealing with. And I feel the same way about the partnership with the schools and the college. I think that we do a decent job of that already, and I think that saying that that is a subset of the inclusive and diverse community may get us to the same place. That's my only feeling, that I would rather see more happen with less.
Well, let me suggest to you then, you are the one who said, well, maybe it's better if we just stay with 3. And if these other 2 are, to your mind, subsumed in them, but they were of enough importance to other council members in the community to garner that many dots, then maybe having them be the second tier is exactly the perfect way for us to go. You're agreeing with that? Okay. Pam, did you have your hand up?
I was just talking about sustainability. One of the things about the sustainability and these items that have not perhaps achieved, that haven't gotten like the big number of dots. We've been doing the Sustainable City Plan for 20 years. We've been working on a climate action plan. Those are not going to stop. So, and frankly, I mean, in my mind, sustainability is part of the cultural norm within all the departments of the city of Santa Monica. So while I didn't pick that one to be my top one, part of that was because I think that it's inculcated, it is part of the culture, and we perhaps need to continue to restate that so that that doesn't get lost, that because it hasn't been in the top 5 doesn't mean that that's not of critical importance to us.
I'm pretty sure the city manager and the staff will recognize that there are 3 dots over there, 1 red and 2 green, and that this council has long stood for sustainability. And again, let me reiterate, we're not abandoning anything here. All we're doing is focusing, and it seems as if we're focusing as a coordinated lens system, which is kind of nice. Ted?
Well, I'm just going to expound on Pam's thought, is that, of course, a lot of the things we have chosen as our top 3 to 5 will actually enhance and move forward our sustainability goals. I mean, just dealing with mobility and housing will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So I think we're sort of all on the same page, that we're not leaving that issue behind, but maybe this is where the focus should be, and will help us to get to those sustainability goals.
So what we seem to have is the primary focus being affordability, mobility, and the airport, with secondary focuses on education and homelessness. Does the council all concur with that? Well then, Rick, that seems to be the general direction that you have gotten, which now leads us to turn to you and say, how best might we generate some metrics for this so that we can evaluate over time what our success is and how more effectively to succeed at these things?
3 things, and 3 being the number, and this being Sunday and having started the day at Mass, 3 is a comfortable number for me. We tend as Catholics to think in 3s. But I am extremely, the first thing is I'm extremely impressed with the tone here. It reflects the tone I've experienced in the community. People genuinely care passionately about the community, but there clearly was a level of respect for difference of opinion, which is a reflection of the diversity that we value so highly in this community, and that is obviously a value I bring to the job as well. So thank you for coming to a conclusion, listening to each other and to the community, and coming to very clear direction. The second thing is it will be very helpful just to be thinking about being strategic. It's what I said in the report, is being strategic about being strategic. Just having this conversation about the importance of expediting and prioritizing things will help us and help you accomplish your goals. And the third is, I think because of what we've learned here today about this process and how well it's gone, we should not try to ram through on metrics today. I think we should take a breath, think deeply about these 5 issues, think deeply about doing good staff work around them, bring back to you for a session either on a Tuesday night or another workshop session like this maybe even tweaked as we improve our ability to do this. And then let's really focus in on the metrics. So let's not shortchange what we've done very well today. Let's queue up doing very well for the next round, which is very clearly defining what it means to achieve success in these top 3 priorities and subsidiary supportive priorities, as well as continue to improve our metrics on the other things that we do in the city.
Well, thank you. And I never anticipated that you'd be able to rattle off the metrics like that, as much of a superman as you are in the city manager's office. I know that's going to take staff work and time. And I do want the council and the community to be part of setting those metrics. You know, what does it mean to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely by the end of this decade? Let's have a discussion about that. So I'm glad to hear that you do have a plan for generating the metrics. That, I think, is really important for the ones that we have chosen. I think it might also be important now to somehow share with the council and the public, and it might be just an info item, something we publish, where we are and where we're going on the 7 issues that didn't get the focus. For instance, this does not mean that we have no interest in Bergamot or the Civic Auditorium as assets for the community. We are moving forward with those plans as we have been. I'm looking very much forward to when we can give residents access to our community-wide gigabit fiber system. Businesses are benefiting from it now. I think I've always felt that broadband internet access is the 21st century equivalent of the 20th century Andrew Carnegie Public Libraries, and that we should be leaders in that, and we can be because we have our own fiber network. The strengthening of downtown, the downtown plan. Let's look at what we need to do to get that downtown specific plan moving. I'd like some review of how we feel we're doing on world-class community service to the community, although frankly, I do think we are providing that and have for some time. The resilience of community infrastructure. I haven't lost interest in well-paved roads or the city yards or any of the other water piping. You know, we have an aging infrastructure for water pipes, and while we have less and less water, it appears, it still needs to get from where we have it to our homes. Community engagement is something I think we need to keep working on as well, and there's probably what we talked about, sustainability. So just to emphasize that what we have done today was to tighten our focus but not abandon other issues. Along with working on the metrics for the things we have decided to focus on, I would ask that staff return just with an update on the others so that we and the public know nothing was taken off the table today. Some things were just moved to the front burner. So council, I think, as I said on the original agenda, we have a moment here at the end which has been listed as for the good of the order, which is not something I've ever seen on a city council meeting. It always makes me think I must be at a meeting of Skull and Bones or something. But the purpose, I believe, was for us to evaluate how this worked for us today. To have the public here, to have a more collegial relationship where we're not up on the dais, to have the opportunity on a first-name basis, to have more of a discussion than a formal debate. Do any council members have any reflections or feelings about what we've done today? Because we might want to do this again in the future the same way or differently, and I think Rick would like to speak first.
Just one way to organize that would be to ask each council member what they thought went well, and by the time we get to the last council member, they may not have anything to add, or they may. And then solicit, probably in opposite order, any things that you would like to tell us, the staff, you'd like to improve. Because if this is something worthwhile, not as a substitute for our Tuesday meetings that are on KCRW, but as a supplement to those on a rare time, because we're taking your time away from your families and your jobs, addition to what you already commit to all the things that you do in the community. But if this has some value, what could we do to improve it? So maybe if we went around the dais, or the table, I should say, today, Kevin, we could ask everyone what they thought went well.
So we'll pass that option like we would pass the cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving dinner. Pam, why don't you start?
Certainly, as you know, some things that we do as the city council are very formal, and need to be formal, because there's public hearing, there's rigorous notices that have to go out. So those would always be done under the more formal setting, but perhaps there are other issues that are on our regular agenda that could be done in a less formal setting, and that's, just thinking out loud, perhaps if those clustered well enough together, it could be a periodic meeting where we cover those in a less formal setting. Again, timing it may not work out, but that's just a little brainstorming.
What went well today?
Well, the setting, the discussion, certainly sitting around the table like this, having the discussion. I think the format worked out, the physical layout format worked out. We sometimes call each other by first names during study sessions. I mean, that's, we can do that. That's great. That kind of suits us. So again, the physical layout, the setting, and then thus having an agenda that would fit this kind of setting versus you have an assessment, you have to have a public hearing, you have to have mailed notices. Those will never work in this kind of setting, but there could be some subset of issues that you cluster together and say, okay, we are going to have this kind of meeting. Maybe it could be on a Tuesday night. I don't know what time of day. I don't know if time of day matters or not. I think it's the setting more.
Derry?
Actually, I think the time of day had an impact on who was here today and the kind of comments that we got from the public, and I think we might entertain doing meetings on daytime meetings on a weekend, as much as I hate saying that out loud. Yeah, it's not every, that's right, but I do think that we had folks turn out today that I don't get to see it as often at our council meetings in the evenings, and I think the comments were quite constructive.
Sue?
So I do like the physical setting, and as Rick noted, and I think it matters, we're all on the same level here. I think it makes a difference to not be sitting on the dais. I think it may even help to not be able to talk at the same time. Hate to say that. I do like the idea of doing it during the day on a weekend. I do feel that it is somewhat disrespectful, and I would have liked to see it on a Sunday afternoon rather than a Sunday morning, because I know that it is a regular observance time for people who are Christian. I'm not one of them, but I like the idea of it being during the day, but I think it should be in the afternoon if this is the day we're going to pick, if it's going to be a Sunday. Other than that, I think it would be interesting to see on boards like this, if we're going to do this, after our reactions, maybe the community gets stickers and gets to say what they want, what they think, and what they would weigh in on favor of, just to see how that lines up with us. I think that would be an interesting exercise that I think there's always room for disagreement. There's always room for dialogue. So I would like to see it opened up in that way as well.
Let me ask right now, staff, do you have any blue dots or dots of another color? I mean, you've made a record of where our dots fell. I actually would be interested in seeing what the people who are here would put up on those same things if we have dots of a different color. And of course, it's self-selected. It's those who are here. It's those who stayed to this point in the day. It's those who could be here on a Sunday morning. And I hear what Sue said about the nature of Sunday morning. But for the record, I am a legally ordained minister. So if anybody missed Mass with Rick and needs a service today, I'll be here after the meeting. Domine, domine, domine. Gleam.
I think today went well, and I agree with Sue that actually the technological limitation that we could only speak one at a time slowed down the discussion, and I think made it more thoughtful, because we weren't all jumping in, trying to get in there, get our comments in, and I think led to a fruitful conclusion.
Tony.
Are we able to confess with you too, or no? Wait a minute. No, I think overall, I think this was great, and I'm a big supporter of try to do these as, you know, if we have to do them quarterly or even, you know, maybe once or twice a year would be great. Because I've worked with some of the South-based cities, and I'm impressed how some of these smaller cities actually have some of their meetings during the day. I think 2 or 3 out of the month, they actually move them to the daytime, weekdays actually, which is kind of interesting. But, you know, that might be tough for our community, but I think a weekend, I'd be open to it. And I guess in terms of the setting, for me, I think the setting was okay. I mean, Santa Monica is such a beautiful city. I don't know why we don't take advantage of our beaches, and I'd like to see us out somewhere. You know, we have, what is it, the Annenberg? And we should be out there somewhere or somewhere where you can take advantage of this beautiful scenery we have here. And I think it lends itself for us to be a little bit more relaxed and hopefully get our energies and our creativity flowing a little bit better. I think today, you know what I was really impressed about, Rick, but I've seen you in action before, so it didn't surprise me, but I think what I really liked, and I think hopefully the community appreciated, is how you were able to, and I know you had conversation with several of us and the community to kind of narrow it down and give us some focus. Otherwise, I've been in these retreats where you're sitting here all day and you can't come up with top 3, and here we are in 3 hours, we were able to do it with community input, so that was kind of impressive.
Okay, so Tony wants to have a meeting at the beach with yoginis and bikinis. We'll see if we can arrange that. Ted.
So, yeah, I'm just going to reiterate a few points that others made. I thought it worked very well today. I agree that in our normal council format, when we're up on the dais and the public is down below, it sort of creates us versus them sort of status, and the idea of us all being on the same level in the same room and being able to stop and have lunch together, engage each other. We didn't put item number 11, which is taking community civic engagement to the next level, in our top 5, but we actually took a step forward with this meeting format today. I think that Sunday mornings are probably not the ideal time. We could do it at the beach, or, you know, there is this notion here that pilot a policy in a pint in 2016, we could have a Saturday afternoon meeting and then all go out for drinks afterwards. And that might be a really nice way to sit around with some members of the public and get to know them and their thoughts about things better. But I think this is a great step forward, and I think we ought to try to do it not super regularly, but as the need arises. I think it's a terrific format.
Well, my comment is the nature of governing a city is that infrequently does anything come to the city council that hasn't already stirred up disagreement at other levels, at a commission level, at a public level. I mean, we are usually tasked with solving the insoluble problems, which means that the choice we're usually given is either or, and the dynamic is often us and them. And that didn't happen today. And the thing I am most impressed by is you, and you out there. Because what happened today that I have not often seen, not in a while at least, we came together as a team. We worked together for the community we all care about and all love. And if nothing else happened today, we proved that that is still possible. Even in 2015, even after some of the disruptive disagreements we've had, we as a community are still capable of coming together, speaking to each other civilly, sharing ideas, and agreeing rather than arguing. And that, to me, is a really special outcome, and I'm really glad we did this today. Are there any other comments? Because I think other than that, we have now given staff direction to work on the metrics and do a staff info item on the other issues. And if there are no other comments, we'll adjourn. Pam, you have a comment?
I was going to say, you know, going forward, there's always going to be times when there's going to be a passionate debate. There's no doubt about that. So the thing is to keep it civil, to not let it get personal. And in my years on the council, more often than not, frankly, I will say this, my years on the council, I think everyone who I have served with has cared about the community. That is why they were there. Sometimes the paths chosen, the decisions made would differ. We'd have different opinions how to get there, but it's been for the good of the community. So civil discourse has, in our country, devolved. Some of that has been seen in Santa Monica, but I think we can, working together with community members, raise that again, and I think today was a good example of how that can be done.
Well, seeing no further requests to speak, let me just point out that we will be convening again Tuesday night at City Hall. That affordable housing, which is one of the issues we talked about today, is on the agenda as a study session. We'll be giving it quite a bit of attention on Tuesday night. So until Tuesday night, thank you all for being here, and this special meeting of the City Council on August 23rd is adjourned.